Welcome back to the Smite Pro League, everybody. One more set today, and it's a big one. Bolt versus the Atlantis Leviathans here in Season 9 of the Smite Pro League, powered, of course, by Prime. Now, I'm not sure I would want to escape from a place called Monkey Island. That actually sounds pretty fun to me. But if you want to escape from Monkey Island, it's one of the free games you get with Prime this month, a whole heaping of other games that you get for free this month with Prime, as well as free delivery, free subs, free in-game content, all that sort of stuff. So make sure you're making the most out of your Prime membership. And thanks again to Prime for powering us this year in Season 9 of the Smite Pro League. My name is Dolson. I'm very much staying on Monkey Island. But Myth, I believe you said you would escape from Monkey Island if given the chance.
Yeah, have you ever actually interacted with a wild monkey?
No. Have you?
Yeah, when I was in Thailand, I was enjoying an ice cream.
Okay.
And a monkey for real snatched my ice cream, bro. I was sitting on a rock, as you do in Thailand.
As you do.
And I had an ice cream and then I didn't, and it just scampered off.
And you then realized it was the wild monkey.
I hope it was a wild, not a trained to steal an ice cream thief's monkey.
Well, that's a very theatrical movie thing. Anyway, we're going right Indiana Jones.
That happened in Jones too.
Pirates of the Caribbean, something
Me
like
and
that.
Harrison
Anyway,
Ford?
let's look at the schedule. We've got a few more sets this weekend.
That's awesome.
2 yesterday, 1 already completed today. A quick one. Camelot Kings 2-0 over the Tartarus Titans. That leads us into Bolts versus Leviathans, and then we're going to swap opponents to start the day tomorrow. Kings versus Leviathans will start us out, and we'll end with Jade Dragon Scarabs with Oni Warriors and Valkyries, the meat and cheese of the 3-game sandwich tomorrow. Now, Myth, I think, what, you didn't like that one?
I'm just really, okay. I'm thinking about Harrison Ford and me, having a thing in common.
You are gazing into space with a smile on your face, and I'm glad it's thinking about Harrison Ford. Some parity in the SPL standings, as the Titans at 3-2 are the only ones chasing the top 2 teams in the league right now, who are both 4-0. So undefeated, the goal for the Olympus Bolts here, Myth. We assumed our first set of the day would be very close, very, very back and forth. Game 1, I suppose, was, but really it felt like the Kings took over in Game 2. I'm assuming this set will also be very close and competitive, but it's, I think, the Leviathans who need to step up and start playing some better Smite. They start off this phase at 1-2, not the showing I think that they would have hoped for. And when the going gets tough, Myth, you got to lean on the veterans. You got to lean on the important members of your team. Everyone on the Leviathans is important, of course, but Rongyu and Zapman really stand out to me on this squad. Rongyu especially out of support, the type who can make plays happen, get this team back on the right track.
Yeah, not many players in the league have got one specific pick, and you just can't let them have it or you're going to lose. Rongyu can count himself amongst those few. Give him Yamoja. Ronnie Moja just wins. So he's at least, at worst, absorbing a ban, and that's always pretty good. Unfortunately for Rongyu and the Atlantis Leviathans, Yamoja generally just kind of gets banned regardless. But still, worth noting that he can just dominate on this pick. But what Rongyu really brings is concise team fights. I feel like when he initiates, if he's starting an engagement, he's always finding the right guy. He's always doing it when his team's got follow-up, and he's always ready at a moment's notice. Outside of that, pretty strong laning phase. Rongyu's one of the most selfless players on the planet. I think he's probably conditioned by having to play with Shinto, right? Take any of his farm, and all of a sudden you've probably got someone yelling in your ear. Supports get it tough regardless, but Rongyu's certainly one that has continued to impress, and I think still in the conversation for one of the best supports in the league.
Oh, absolutely. That's never changed. Just really, I think this is a meta style of conversation, big meta changes from the end of Worlds to now. So figuring out how the team slots into that meta, always going to be the topic of conversation and the thing you really have to look at. This roster won Worlds, right? That's not there's no downfall.
He's a 3-time.
There's a 3-time. Wrongyu's not a 3-time. He'd love to be a 3-time. Maybe the next couple of years.
He's a world champion.
He's a world champion, though.
Now you say it in text-to-speech voice.
What?
Say it text-to-speech style.
I don't know what that means.
You never... He's a... TTS?
You're right. I know, but I don't know what you want me to say.
He's a world champion. That's the bit. That's the meme, man.
He's a world champion. In text-to-speech voice?
Yeah, do it like
I'm
real
saying,
robotic.
what is the bit? What's the bit?
That's the whole bit.
Saying it robotically?
That's right.
That makes no sense at all. You tweeted, don't judge me on my hits but my misses because there are so few. Add this one to the miss pile. I have no idea what that means. Rongyu standing by with me, hopefully to save my life a bit here in the pregame interview. Rongyu, I want to talk a bit about Phase 2 so far. Start off 1-2. You guys have played a lot of the top teams currently in the league in VOD reviews, scrims, things like that. What has the team identified that you're hoping to fix and kind of get things back rolling, get some winning going more consistently?
Well, to be fair, mentally I'm 2-1 because we throw against the Dragons.
That's
But,
true.
you know, happens.
Right.
But I think we're just improving. We're not getting a stomp, you know, at
Right.
least right now. We're like getting some gains. We just need to fix like some late calls. And that's like the stuff that could be fixed easily. Like before we had trouble with the gods and the meta
Right.
or communication and practice. But now I think we're in a good momentum and I think it's going to be a good game.
Right. It doesn't seem like anything the team as a whole is super worried about,
Yeah.
especially when you can identify something specific like in that Dragon set. I want to talk a bit about Awesome Jake and his build path. He is building a lot of Chronos Pendant. Is that something you have any interest in? What's your take on the Chronos rush on all of these supports for your opponent today?
I think in rank is like good, but in SPL, I mean, you could do it, but I feel like Chronos Pendant second is better if you are going to do that. It's like a private, but in an aggressive way.
Right.
And I think it's like a good advantage. Like you're gonna get one shot in late game, one shot them early. You know.
Right. Well, Jake's got something figured out. You guys got some momentum rolling for you. Excited to see this set, and best of luck.
Thank you.
All right. So the support matchup, Myth, is going to be very important here in this one. I'm not leaning into your bit anymore. I'm moving on. And we have to look at the Olympus Bolts and their squad here so far because they have not lost yet. This is a team that has been playing some very good, very consistent Smite, undefeated 4-0 to start off their phase. And a lot of it through the play of their aggressive support. Awesome Jake has been looking really good. Remember, Barracuda hasn't been able to play in studio with these guys for a little while. He's back now in studio. Their scrims were all sort of out of sorts. And so for Jake especially, you got to step up in that duo lane, help out the squad, and he's been doing it.
He's been looking real good at it as well. The early Chronos Pendant start, as Wrong you said, generally a ranked special, but Jake has made it work at the SPL level.
Yeah, but isn't that just Jake?
Yeah, I mean he plays a lot of ranked.
No, but he's the ranked special that is just good enough at that to make it work in the SPL. No, I'm serious, and that's not a knock on Jake. That's just his play style.
Yeah, every ranked player on the planet is so happy that they think their style can work now because of what you said.
Yeah, but it can't because he's better than all of them. Right? They're not him. They're not Awesome Jake.
The aggressive styling of Awesome Jake, I think, has got to come to the forefront of the conversation when you're discussing his style of play, and that Chronos Pendant, I think, is the embodiment of it. He wants to rotate through. He essentially, for the first item, just wants to be a secondary jungler for his team, and has, for the most part, has made it work out. But you would think that the Olympus Bolts as a whole would want to get like hyper aggressive when you have a Chronos Pendant rush support, right? It's, hey, we've got a lot of CDR. Let's start using these Jing Shen ultimates on cooldown. Let's start spamming our Yomojo ultimates. But it still is a almost calculated style from the Olympus Bolts in that a lot of their aggression is rooted around, hey, can we get a Pyromancer now? Hey, can we get a Gold Fury now? Rather than this, I suppose, devil may care attitude you might associate with that style of build and this player in particular. But Jake has very quickly reined in that over-aggression, become a much more considerate, much more consistent player as well. But, man, I don't love the Chronos Pendant start. I'll keep it real. I'll be wrong you. Go second.
I'm a big fan of it just because we had this conversation the other day. It's just damage and
cool
more
down.
often, right?
Wish it didn't have that MP5.
And so for my simple brain, more damage and doing more damage more often just scratches an itch. This Bolts team has been leaning heavily on Lasbra for good reason. Lasbra's put together some really, really nice games. Over the last 7 games, the Olympus Bolts have gone 6-1 individual games. A 3-game set against the Jade Dragons, and then 2-0 over the Oni Warriors, 2-0 over the Valhalla Valkyries. And so I think prioritizing picks for Lasbra could be important for the Bolts here today. And the Atlantis Leviathans figuring out their own personal meta a bit more could be strong for them as well. Because Panatom, an incredibly good player. And, of course, some stumbles against the Jade Dragons that the Leviathans talked about. And I think that's a good mindset. Wrong you saying, well, we could be 2-1. We stumbled a bit against the Dragons. So as a team, mentally, we feel like we're 2-1. And I think there's some value to that. But outside of the final game against the Oni Warriors, where Panatom goes 7-1-6, haven't seen like the hyper carry style of performance from him in the last few sets, and that's something I'd like to see today, prioritizing those styles of picks.
But when you think of Panatom in the entirety of his regular season play, he wasn't that hyper carry, right? He was the consistent initiator, the guy who's facilitating, willing to sacrifice his farm, but still there and capable of making the plays when you need to. When you think of like Panatom hyper carry, it's at the World Championship when he's like soloing Cyclone Spin on cooldown. I think that was more so just playing really high level Smite, coming to your peak at the right time. Whereas normally it really is the Leviathans as a team willing to facilitate Shinto, willing to play through Zapman, trying to get those two in a position to carry the game. And that is their most consistent style, and I think that's what they've been aiming for recently, which is why we see Panatom taking a bit of a backseat.
Yep. Now, Ullr does leave some flexibility open for this Leviathan squad. Neither Zapman nor Shinto has played Ullr in the last 6 games that the Atlantis Leviathans have played. Both have played it, of course, plenty of times throughout their career. So you're not revealing too much with the Ullr first pick here, Myth. Though there is a little respect given over to Jake, the Xing Qin ban. Of course, the Emoja taken away on the flip side. And Robin left open. Remember, Haddox looked real good on this pick the other day against the Valks.
A death toll, a Robin at that for Haddox, so doing it completely different than what we'd seen from SOT. This Ull pick might be interesting because I agree, I don't really associate it with the mid or ADC of the Leviathans. But Yarkor, during his brief stint in the Hunter role, was an Ull abuser, man. He was locking it in legitimately every single game. And now in the Soul lane, we've seen a couple of these guys. Scary D played the Ull once or twice. We've seen Haddox do it once or twice. This could be a Soul lane Ull for the Leviathans. Of course, only pick in the composition so far. Hard to make a dedicated call towards that, but certainly has some potential to go there.
You think we're getting double Lonos masks this game from the Bolts?
Almost certainly.
You get it for Robin and for Nox.
Almost certainly.
It goes over to Awesome Jake. So if we're assuming that early on in the draft, is that something the Leviathans can draft around later? I mean, I know just taking less damage, there's only so much you can do about that. But if you're a team, do you then suddenly over-prioritize damage dealers? You just try to play your game and hope you can stay alive? Can you draft around what we're assuming will be 2 very, very tanky and sustainy targets?
I think that the answer to hyper tank is healing. So things like Hell, probably pretty strong. Ardio, Baron Samedi jump to my mind because what you are sacrificing and going towards Lothrone's Mask is all of your burst.
Right,
You're losing out on so much of it. So healing gets a lot more value in these longer team fights because it takes a whole lot of time to kill both Robin and Nox once they do finish up that Lona's Mask, and it takes them a whole lot of time to kill you as well. And the longer a fight goes, the more value your healing gets. Things like Kepri as well, it can kind of pseudo-fit that style in that, hey, if it's a death of 1,000 cuts, that's 999 cuts before you need to scare Blessing.
That's right. That's true. So Kepri, a strong pick for Roggy and the Leviathans, has been really strong for all of the SPL. Think back to last set, how obnoxious Genetics was all throughout both of those games. On the Kepri, the Scarab's Blessing just completely flipped that game around. Bolts thinking long and hard about what they want their third pick of the first phase to be. Already, we assume, have solo lane and support picked in here. And so really need your carries at this point. Some notables left on the table. Mercury has often been banned out. One of the highest prioritized junglers at the moment. Nemesis also has taken a couple of bans. I wonder if getting Lasbra on something strong for him is the mindset, and it's not. Getting something for Ven, though, that has looked good in the Kukul Khan is the priority for the Bolts.
A very safe pick that should extend the game to get the Bolts to the portion where they can start looking towards that Lono's Mask, a Kolkin of God that is very apt to walk up to the lane, drop Tornado, walk back to his tower, rinse, repeat until you're over to like level 20. And if somebody on your team shows up, maybe you toss out an ultimate off the back of some CC. So if the Olympus Bolts are aiming for a late game team fight, this style of pick fits that very, very well. But I agree that I think that they would have been well served by a Nemesis lock-in just because Lasbra is so integral to the Olympus Bolts. When Lasbra's having a great game, the Olympus Bolts are just winning, and they're looking like some of the best to have ever done it. But when Lasbra struggles, that's when the Bolts as a whole start to struggle as well. So giving the Leviathans now some time to dedicate a couple more bans. They'd already taken away his Daji. Now the Fenrir looked at as well. Just going to maybe pigeonhole Lasbra into a pick that won't fit the aggressive styling that you want to see from him.
Yeah, so, really the Daji, I think, was the biggest hit to Lasbra. Lasbra has looked near unstoppable on that pick here.
He's nasty.
In Phase 2. 7-0-7 against the Oni Warriors the last time we saw the Daji for Lasbra. Haven't seen it since. And then 7-2-6 on the Fenrir. And so another smart ban by the Atlantis Leviathans. Scotty left open. To banning, of course. Is Barracuda not going to be able to play one of his favorite picks? Haven't seen that one much for Barra. Barra's played a lot of Jing Wei.
That makes sense.
4 games of the last 6 for Barracuda have been Jingwei, and that is still an available pick here. We're going to get some more info on the Leviathans as far as Uller and whether that's mid, whether that's solo, whether that's ADC. And get a nice look back at what Ven was able to do. With
Dude,
this,
did he drop Tornado on wave, wait for CC to come through, and then drop an ultimate?
Yeah, that wasn't a highlight, was it?
That's clean from Ben. This guy's nuts.
He hits those. That dirt. Cleaned up, dusted.
That's right.
Gilgamesh is the pick for Lasbra. And Myth, you talk about initiation, setting up for the rest of your team. Gilgamesh is a great way of doing that.
It is, and you know, the more I had looked at this Nemesis selection I was bringing up a little bit earlier for the Bolts, the more I'm kind of thinking myself out of it, right? Like, Khepri makes it so hard for Nemesis to stick to her targets. Ardio with the cripple field, already incredibly hard to kill, and also really makes it difficult for Nemesis to stick to her target. So I think Gilgamesh giving over that beacon to help out the entirety of your team or be that primary initiator with Winds of Shamash should help out the Bolts very well. And that's not to mention like the 1.5 second stun you get off the back of a drop kick, right? You're landing Spirit of the Nine Winds off that consistently, or a Shadow Lock from Nox, or a Caledonian Boar from Barracuda, or even just a Trap, or to a certain extent like the Root and a Slow from Robin. So there is plenty of setup on the side of the Bolts. But the Leviathans draft is sneaky scary. I mean, objective play, always the topic of conversation when ESET's been locked in. Early pressure around the Erlong Shen and the Ul. A lot of single target damage on the side of the Bolt, so Khepri should have a pretty decent time lining up his Scare's Blessings. I really like this Leviathans draft.
Yep. Leviathans have a good draft. I do like seeing Barracuda and the nice smile he's got. You know, yesterday came in, had the mask on, general sickness related, and I believe Destiny got him an espresso this morning, and so the duo lane of the Bolts, I think, feeling back to full strength, which is a good shout for the Bolts. What a duo lane matchup we've got. Highlighted the supports going into this one, but a storied matchup between Zapman and Barracuda, and Artemis up against an Uller.
They've been doing it for a decade.
Yeah, that is a long time to be going back and forth with one another. The ESET to finish off the draft, Myth. You touched on it a little bit. Touched on the healing of the Ardio a bit. 9 turns Blessing has some sustain in there as well. Do you think the healing reached the point that you wanted it to reach to deal with some of the tankiness that the Bolts are going to have later in this game?
To a certain extent, in combat healing, I think the topic, or really the main strength of the Leviathans, sustain in the team fight. It's mostly coming from this Ardio. Single target from the Erlong Shen, not a massive deal. ESET, not generally using her ultimate just for healing. It's literally, hey, I either finish off a kill or I'm doing the objective. Those are the 2 ways you use circle protection. So it's not, hey guys, we're low, let's resustain. That's not really how you see it. That's not to say that it won't happen, but that is a much more fringe scenario for them. But I think the conjunction of Ardio and Khepri together might make it a little bit more difficult for the Olympus Bolts to make this draft work if they are going for that super heavy mitigation, double Lono's Mask style of build.
And we expect it to be that. Remember, the last time we saw Haddix on Robin was just the other day. Yesterday, in fact. A 2-0 win for the Bolts over the Valhalla Valkyries, where 7-1-7 was the KDA for Haddix. He was running down 4 members of the Valkyries. The team on the other side didn't really matter. Haddix was just kind of running at him. And so finding an answer to Robin is not only something the Leviathans need to figure out, I think just the league in general right now is hoping to find something to deal with it, because Haddix into this style of pick, just as scary as Sot on this style of pick. And so I'm gushing over that a bit going into this game. Love the Ardio, though, for Yarkor. Lots of storylines in game number 1. The Olympus Bolts hoping to remain undefeated. The Leviathans trying to notch another win in game number 1.
We'll have to see if they can do it. And I think Dave brings up a good point I think everybody is waiting to see what the answer is going to be to this Robin Trelly. Can a team finally dethrone this pick? Can we finally see somebody be able to take this one down? That someone's going to have to be the Atlantis Leviathans in game number 1 up against the Olympus Bolts. J-Mac, Trelly, and Doug here in game number 1. We walked from the green room as the picks and bans were going. We saw Haddix on the Robin, and then we saw Jake on Nox, and we were both a little concerned for the Leviathans, to say the least.
Yeah, it's just going to be very difficult to try and deal with. Looking at the way Haddix is itemized, I imagine, you know.
Oh, it's already started.
You know how that build's going to peter out.
It's already started.
I know how that build's going to peter out.
It's going to start even earlier, too, because he gets a magical god.
Yeah, that's true. He's up against Yarkor, so he can just start stacking those mitigations as much as possible.
Oh,
and
wait a sec. That's Zapman on E-set, not Shinto.
Yeah.
Okay, who cares about that? Nobody cares about E-set ADC?
Yeah, what you talking about? What's the problem?
That-
Hunters are good in mid, mages are good in Hunter lane. Everyone knows that.
Okay, yeah, Freya's good in Hunter, Olarun, who else? Chronos, Soul, like, I think of those. Maybe we go back old school like Nuwa, maybe. E-set's not one I would expected, but for now, it's getting some good pressure up against Jake and Barracuda. Jake actually has to go into his dash first.
Yeah, jokes aside, Zap did start the spear ball here, realizing that if Jake gets that silence, could have just silenced him out of his clear, and that's probably not going to be the most fun you've ever had in lane. But it looks like they're just putting a lot of presence on this E-set, and, you know, Rongyu got Kepri, so you can't put in support, and Ullr came through, and Shinto wants some pressure in lane up against Zen. So that seems like a good option to me. I think they just want to make sure they're using that circle protection and making sure they've got some solid objective confirm. And Zapman, he's been around, we just talked about on the desk, for a decade now. He's been...
That's over a third of my life.
Yeah, he's played a lot of Smite is the point.
Over 1/3 of my life, Barra and Zapman have been fighting against each other in this lane. That blows my mind, Trelly. It blows my mind that it's been that long since these two have been playing with each other, or against each other, I guess, technically.
Yeah, never with each other.
No,
As far as I've seen, I don't think they've ever been on
Unless
a
it
team.
was like some all-star game that
Yeah,
they
okay, that's fair.
But outside of that, it has been Zapman versus Barra. Jake finds the root on Zapman. Barra finds another root on Zapman, and Zapman then will eat the dash damage from Jake, put down to a quarter HP on the C-set.
Yeah, seeing some sparks fly in the duo lane, but the junglers are on the opposite side of the map, so unless, barring some lucky relic usage or just some misplays, I don't think we'll see too much action until these purple buffs spawn in, and I think that's why Jake and Bear were getting a little bit over-aggressive in that lane. They want to try and invade that purple buff if possible, but nothing is yelling to them that it's going to be a possibility. Lasper has to come over and help with this blue buff, but with the Mannequin Scepter already gone is that buff.
Blink in from Lasper on a drop kick is just too late. Panatom able to shred through that blue buff and take that one with relative ease. Haddix does have the overhead kick, so at least get away from some of the damage in CC that the Leviathans have, but a bit of a rough start, at least for the Olympus Bolts on the right side of the map, making sure that Haddix stays down is the Atlantis Leviathans. Meanwhile, Jake trying to invade the purple buff, but unsuccessful in doing so.
Oh no, I'd say he's successful. He stole the minis. That's what he wanted. He got the minis,
Big
he
dub.
dashed out, and forced Rongyu to use the hog there. So that's a massive play from Awesome Jake. They'll be missing that farm. Barracuda's gonna hit 4 just a little bit earlier than Zap, but unfortunately the wave just gets full cleared. So
Zap's already hit 4.
the point will never come to be made. There's gonna can we see the net worth? Can I just see
You mean
if
the XP needed?
No, Bear is even behind because he hasn't cleared the wave yet, so my point still doesn't come through. You'll never be able to see it, but trust me, at some point in this game, Barra is going to get a gold lead on Zapman, and it'll because of that steal that Jake just had.
Oh, man. What a start that we're already having. Leviathans and Bolts, a very storied matchup, similar as I brought up on the desk before the set even happened. You know, Leviathans and the Bolts have been playing each other for a while. Typically, the Bolts have been able to find the advantage over the Leviathans.
Advantageous
The advantageous advantage over the Leviathans in the past. It wasn't until the latter half of Season 8 that the Leviathans finally started to get some wins over the Bolts. So now, a much more back-and-forth battle between these two teams.
Yeah, it seems like, so far, largely mitigated is the solo lane just because of those blue buff invades. We haven't seen Haddix been able to step too far out of lane just because, again, the blue buff has not been his as of recent. He's been teleporting in, making sure he's got some mana under his belt because you have to use a lot of, when you build this way, when you build this tanky and don't have that much damage built into your kit, you have to use a lot of rotations of your abilities to actually clear that wave, which essentially means you're just going to be sitting under tower. But Haddix, top of the net worth chart's not going to matter too much. This time he will get his blue buff, so shouldn't be a problem anymore. He'll just be able to continuously farm up in that lane. That's where the junglers are, and so that's where the action could be. That's why I got to keep my eyes over there. If there ever does come a point where Panatom sees an opportunity, he doesn't have the blink to close that gap, only the beads, whereas Lasper does have that blink, so probably trying to get active somewhere on the map. At the moment it's at speed buff, so not really forcing anything just yet, but got to keep my eyes on the Gilgamesh.
Some pressure, actually. Barracuda stealing away that larger Harpy inside the Arthurian camp there. So, a little bit of a boost for Barracuda, being able to get some extra XP from under the nose of Zapman and Rongyu. And I think the more impressive part about that soul lane discussion is the fact that Haddix has lost his blue buff in that prior one, has been pushed under this tier 1 tower, but he's still the one maintaining that net worth lead in that solo lane. So at least some good startup by Haddix on this Robin. Maybe just because Panatom has been over here so many times to split some of these camps with Yarkor.
Yeah, if you are going to be, having your jungler help you as much, you're going to be getting that solo farm, which does add up. It does start to help you out as the lane goes on, but they're so close. 100 gold at the moment is a ward and a potion. And actually, since Haddix has a chalice, Yarkor's ahead. That's 300 gold that Haddix had to spend. And we'll call it an investment as the game goes on. The more potions that Yarkor buys, the more that Haddix's chalice will start to benefit him. But as of now, I'm calling him 300 gold in the hole. But let's finish the full Genji's guard finally. Even though he doesn't have the teleport, he will have to run all the way back to base. That's going to help him out. We've already talked about how many abilities you got to use to clear the wave. Genji's guard just resets those abilities, and that's going to be helpful as Ven forced into the beats. Pantom was wrapping around, so good call to use him early instead of use them before you lose them type of deal.
Definitely does have to use those there. And talking about chalices and whatnot, Awesome Jake has invested in 2 of them. A health chalice to start the game out, and then after this last back with his Gauntlet of Thieves gets a ward chalice. So should be seeing a lot of ward coverage coming from the support, but that means that no sentries are going to be available to him at any point. He's going to have to rely on the rest of his team to grab those until he at least sells either the potion chalice for his health or sells the ward chalice, but I don't see why you would need to, considering you want to have those wards anyways.
Yeah, Jake's never selling that. He's going to sit on, he's going to say, I don't need a sentry, as Panatom is going to make the rotation here. He was spotted out by Jake, so Barrett and Jake have all the reason to recognize that there is an Erlong Shen close by, but also not too afraid. Just the Crusher and the Manic Conceptor has a lot of DPS, but both of them have their ultimates available. Jake has a lot of lockdown for things like this when he just wants to try and steal away one of those oracles. Won't be successful, so the vision goes the way of the Leviathans, and Panatom has to run away. Given the fact that Panatom's here, you gotta wonder where Lasper is. It's over at speed buff, still not getting active. The Gilgamesh has a solid early, and notably, Lasper hasn't went on his quest yet, so I'm wondering where that item is. It's probably somewhere in a terrible spot where he's got to go so far out of his way to pick up that free tier 1 and just not even worth it on his normal path. One day he'll pick it up, and I'll be keeping my eyes out for it.
For now, he does just go back to base, picks up a tier 1 mace alongside his Jotun's Wrath. I noticed over in the duo lane that Zapman and Rongyu were holding and kind of freezing a wave on their side, so a little bit of XP taken away from Barra, a little bit of engage onto Zapman. He does manage to at least grab the offering before losing a little bit of his HP. Barracuda now a little bit further behind because of that freezing that happened earlier on. I'm curious as to where the Olympus Bolts are going to want to put their pressure, because they're going to get a Trebuchet. The question now is, do they just let that Trebuchet fly, or do they hold on to it for a bit?
Yeah, given the map state, I don't see any reason to let the Trebuchet fly, be going over to duo lane, whereas, Barra's on this Death Toll Dev Gauntlets Artemis build. You're not doing crazy amounts of damage. There are no beads down on the map, unless you're ulting Yarkor somehow, so not too much action there. Haddix has ult and overhead kick available, so I don't think he's in too much danger here. And will just ult away because, you don't want to get too low in lane when you don't have... Actually, he does have the teleport available, so it could have backed up if need be, but ulting away just the smart option. They're not going to net a kill, but the blue buff after the fact, now that Mystic Rush is down, could be looked at. Panatom sort of rotating around the map, sort of looking if he can go for the Scorpion beforehand, and Yarkor is going to start up this blue buff because Haddix is stuck on that wave.
Did see Shinto slightly rotate on mid, maybe trying to get some ward coverage up in that left side of the jungle, but blue buff will be invaded by the Leviathans once again, trying to keep Haddix down on this Robin. We know what this Robin's capable of. We've seen it now 4 times total, I think, in the SPL, and all 4 of those wins in this solo lane Robin build has been working out. Haddix jumped on by Panatom, but that's about it. Just hit by the Mink form, hit by the pin, and Haddix will be completely fine. So I think for the fans at home, for me, maybe even for Dave as well, just for our sanity's sake, is seeing if the Leviathans have found a way to answer to this solo Robin. As a drop kick hits Panatom, and I don't think Panatom wants to take this fight, especially with Jake showing up. Silence will stop the turtle form, a 9 turns blessing finds 3. And when Shinto's standing by, shouldn't be any further engage on a Panatom.
The beats and the ult goes down now could be an option. You don't want to send out that Spirit of the 9 Winds when there isn't some confirmed lockdowns. It's just so telegraphed and easy to avoid. Haddix is trying to invade this blue buff himself because he doesn't have his, but Rongyu's on the way, so this is going to be a 1 versus 3. Still has Mystic Rush available, already used the overhead kick, and he's out of there, so not going to be any more issue. I was going to say, it seems like the Leviathans are playing in a way to put this Robin behind, or at least attempt to, try and keep Haddix down as much as possible. The Bolts have to have figured this out. They can get active elsewhere on the map, given the fact that Barracuda never wants to step up this far in lane. Zapman's got the wave here and isn't clearing on purpose, so the Bear's missing out on some of these last hits. We see Awesome Jake rotate over, maybe try to get active, trying to give Barra a little bit of space in this lane, maybe possibly a beads down, but with that Shadow Luck missing, Zapman gets to hold on to those. We're seeing a lot of presence on the right side of the map, and the versus on the left side is not true. There's just going to be no more action.
Wrong wrapped around, will get hit by the Shadow Lock, but no real kill pressure just yet between Barra and Jake. And taking a look at Zapman's build, went for the Book 1 to start things out, goes to a Book of Thought to stack, and now working towards a Warlock staff. So double stacking out of Zapman on the east set in the dual lane.
Yeah, it's smart because, you know, you usually leave your ADC, we'll call it, even though east set is not an ADC. You usually left your ADC your carry.
Yeah.
Yeah, you leave your carry over in that lane just to clear up some waves, clear up your camps as much as possible, but you're leaving them alone for quite some time until late game. So if Zap's like, I'm going to be here until, like, I don't know, 20 minutes before I rotate out, I might as well just get the most benefit I can from the double stack. So Warlock Sash coming next, already a couple stacks on that Book of Thought, not quite finished, but I think Zap's going to make himself real comfortable in that lane and not rotate out for quite some time.
Well, we do see a level 13 Shinto as of right now, highest level in the game, which is about standard anytime you're talking about a Leviathans matchup, a Leviathans team in general. Shinto will more often not be the most farm person, but they'll steal some of that farm away from Panathon, or at least force him to split when he maybe doesn't entirely want to. Awesome
Panathon, he doesn't have a choice.
He really doesn't. It's something we always joke about, where Panathon kind of just picks up the scraps, and we'll need some real assistance now. Drop kicked against the wall, has the turtle form. The ultimate, though, from Jake, just off the mark, a wide right. As Yarkor zones away 3 of the bolts, Jake gets his ultimate dash stopped. Spirit of the Night wins, hits 2, and Yarkor locked inside the Fire Giant pit. Shinto jumps up. Axos doesn't hit the target he's wanting, though.
Yeah, Jake needs to jump into someone, but it looks like the aggression from the Leviathans is over. It was a beautiful chain stun. Remember, Panatom's beads, they come up in 3 seconds, as Shinto is still just onslaughting Ven with as much damage as possible from this Uller. The beads are up now. It was the only chance that the Bolts had to try and get a kill onto that Erlang. Unfortunately, Ben was too far away. The Spear of the Nine Winds couldn't connect from that distance, and even if Jake's ult hit, looking at his build, that would have tickled Panatom. I mean, a health pot could have outdamaged that ultimate, so not going to be enough to finish that one. And now the Leviathans, they get a Pyromancer for their troubles as Bear gets zapped very weak and forces him to back up.
Very low for Zapman, but Pyromancer does go to Leviathans. Haddix surrounded by 3, doesn't have ultimate, only has his overhead kick
He'll be fine.
for any kind of defense. Uses it to get away from the root. Panatom dives under, but that's the end of that. Lasbra has shown back up. The drop kick just off the mark from sweeping Panatom up. And instead, it'll be Leviathans just grabbing their objective and just making their way out.
Yeah, I think the Leviathans are continuously, every couple minutes, they're coming back to solo lane and doing a damage check. Like, can we kill him? I'm like, all right, no. Okay, maybe we'll get one more item. Okay, can we kill him now? I got kin size. No, we still can't kill him. Okay, maybe, I just don't think the answer is ever going to be yes. It just takes too long. You have to put too much DPS into this Robin. He's not losing anything for it. He doesn't have to back up. Ben, no, you certainly could kill. The axe connects.
No, but the beads weren't available to Ven, so he goes down first blood to the Atlantis Leviathans, and a nice little juke of the ultimate away from Awesome Jake. And now the Leviathans, after taking Pyre, after taking a pick in mid, can march their way over to the Gold Fury. They still got Zapman's ultimate, and this should be more than confirmed for them. Zapman's just got to pop the ult. He will do so, and it's a second objective now to the Leviathans. The question for the Bolts is, can they get out, especially with Yarkor and Haddix making their rotations over?
Yeah, it looks like Haddix wanted to look for the fight after the fact, but the Bolts didn't have too much to look for. With Ven dead, Spear of the Nine Winds is a great option for a team fight, but he didn't have it. He was gone, and it doesn't look like anyone else is really looking to engage here. Jake is essentially just CC for the rest of the squad with one of your carries down. Even losing the objective, you can't really look to force anything. So unfortunate for the Bolts. You lose the Gold Fury, and you're going to have to go back to the old farm game. If you're looking at the level lead at the moment, Yarkor's a level up above Haddix, even in the jungle. The biggest disparity, Shinto 15 to Ben, who just ticked over to 14, so that's a full level. And Zapman also just gained a level lead, probably just because of that wave being cleared. Either way, some XP disparity on top of the gold already for the Leviathans, I should say.
Haddix again pushing up in the lane, but should be fine. Even with Panatom and Yarkor, your overhead kick will get Haddix enough distance. He's taking some damage, but he'll be able to stay nice and healthy under this tier 1 tower. Shinto eat some damage from the tornado, and Haddix walking back in to still continue to put that poke out there. This Robin now is 3 items in, a couple of those being that physical defense against Panatom. Shouldn't go down in these 2v1s that easily.
No, definitely not. You'd have to put a ton of dive, and I think the tower just does too much damage. Noteworthy is that Haddix is never killing Yarkor either. I don't think either of them are going to find a solo kill, but I don't think there's any option to find a 1v1 unless someone stays just way too long or expects a little bit too much. Panatom is here, and Jake is not taking too much damage with that Lonos mask already being finished up. I don't think he's a great target to start these fights. They got a good pick on Aven, who already has both relics back up, so I don't think there's going to be any more aggression towards that Cuckoo unless just trying to force something out. Panatom has a fair bit of damage, has the blink in, maybe it's a blink taunt, get the beats down, reset, do it again in a couple minutes.
For now, the Leviathans do have a small gold lead, or at least a decent gold lead, nearly 3K with some of those offerings going their way. Experience, very similar position. So for the Leviathans, they've got a nice early lead up against the Olympus Bolts. The question I have for you, Charlie, is once we start getting to everybody hitting level 20, we start getting 4 or 5 items deep in the build, do the Leviathans still have the team fight presence where if they can hold that gold, it'll be enough to stop the Olympus Bolts?
See, that's interesting because there's a Zapman on an E-set who, he popped his ult at the right time. He confirmed Gold Fear. That's like 50% of a mid laner's job. The other 50% is hitting his abilities. You know, he's been around for a while. I imagine he'll be on point with the Spirit Balls. He only has about half the stacks on that Warlock stash, so still some time before he leaves that lane and feels confident. But only about a full Obsidian Shard there, so should be a fair bit of damage. If we're just going on raw team fight potential, Shinto is going to be able to just delete someone with how far along he is in this build. If he gets an axe onto any of the squishies at the back line of the Olympus Bolts, should just be gone. And honestly, that includes Lasper. Only has the Glad Shield. Not too tanky in his own right, so gotta watch out for the damage coming out from Shinto.
Panatom will be able to clear up the Oracle Harpies, get some more vision for the next potential spawn of this Fury. As the Leviathans put pressure over towards the duo lane, Zapman will be able to help take away another purple buff from Barracuda, who has just been relegated to sitting under this tier 1 tower for the latter half of this game. There is a Trebuchet pushing up in the left lane now for both of these teams. The fight breaks out at the red buff. Panatom locked in place, but as soon as that lock breaks, he can dash on out. Haddix has joined the fray, and it's all 10 players on the left side of the map. But that's all the fighting that's going to break through. I thought maybe we would see a little bit more.
Yeah, the Oni Fury's not up just yet. It's still about a minute out. I think the rotation was just to clear up some space, maybe clear out that Trebuchet and left as well. You don't want to be giving up too much right before that Oni Fury spawns. Jake is just running at Zap, trying to be as annoying as possible. Pyromancer's back up though, so the Levi's are going to head over there as Haddix and Lasper are trying to fight through the tanks of the Leviathans to get to that Pyromancer, but it just takes too long. They have too much CC. Both the Bug and the Bear are going to be too hard to walk past.
Rongyu and Yarkor are just holding their arm out against Haddix's head like, nope, sorry buddy, you can't make it through here. You're just not allowed to pass at this point. And pass he cannot. The Pyromancer once again goes over to the Atlantis Leviathans, a 5,000, nearing 5,000 gold lead at the very least, and XP. Nobody level 20 yet, so all that XP very relevant. And both the Trebuchets get taken down in the left lane, so no real value from those, just more of a distraction than anything for the teams. Zapman gets locked in place, but should be just fine. That Spirit Ball doing more damage than Jake's full combo.
I mean, Zap's doing a ton already, but still doesn't have that. I've got my eye on that Warlock stash, man. I want him. He's been sitting in lane for so long, hasn't really rotated to too many fights. I just want the full items to be stacked up so I can see the real damage numbers coming out of this E set. It's interesting because second item Warlock sash is going to be stacked up at the same time that Shinto hits level 20 in this game. That's just the rate at which he's been farming. And it looks like since the Oni Fury's back in, gotta have some vision on that objective. You want to make sure that circle protection is not being wasted. It's definitely the hardest confirming ability in the game because of the way that Zap has been able to itemize.
How close is Shinto? Not on that wave, fully hit 20. He'll have to get a little bit more XP either with a kill or a camp, but unfortunately for Shinto, there's no camps to be farmed, so instead, it'll be an Oni Fury for the Leviathans. How about a way to hit level 20 if they can get there? Shinto front lines with Yarkor while the Oni Fury starts melting away. The Leviathans can confirm yet another objective. The Windish Watch drop. Lasbra able to grab at least one through it. Rongyu's got to use his beads, but are the beads enough through it? No, it's the Spirit of the Night wins from Venenu to find the first kill for the Olympus Bolts. Shark finds a 4-man stun, but finds a path on out. The Olympus Bolts answer back, taking 1 for the objective.
Yeah, Ronq had the Scarab's Blessing. Maybe didn't think the ult was going to connect, or just recognized even if he got that off, it would just stall a little bit and then still probably would have died after the fact. So great ult by Ven to answer back. There are Oni minions all across, and there's no Pyromancer over here, J-Mac. There's only one objective the Olympus Bolts could be posturing to go for, and it's the Fire Giant. This is a risky call.
But the mid laners don't have their secure. Haddix and Lasper are going to give up on the Fire Giant for now and rejoin the fight. Shinto is still full HP, so is most of the Atlantis Leviathans. The Bolts are the ones who are a little worse for wear. Lasper and Jake specifically, a little bit lower on their health bars. Again, another lock from Jake, but Shinto standing by. It's not a person that you want to be trapped with. Jake throws out the silence, and a root will catch Yarkor. Jake uses Barracuda as a taxi service to try and find a way out, but Barra cannot find a path out. The Spirit Ball will be off the mark. Jake pops himself on out. Panatom goes back in, but another Shadow Lock will lock down Yarkor. That keeps him out of the fight.
And it looks like still trying to get aggressive is Haddix, has plenty of HP, and the winds of Samach come in.
Yarkor in the midst, and there's a circle of protection to keep him alive. That's enough to take down Lasbra. And the revive will make sure that Yarkor has a path out no matter what. Barracuda now caught out, and it's Shinto who grabs 1. Spirit of the Nine Wind rips through 2, but nobody on the Leviathans goes down.
Shinto is still chasing this. A hail of arrows might have been enough to finish that, and it looks like with the rest of the Olympus Bolts running away, Shinto will be in no more danger, I should say. And now the Leviathans are able to posture back towards this FG if they so please. Shinto hasn't left. He's just trying to bully Haddix now at blue buff. He's not letting him get that.
Nope. Doing okay damage to him. That Loneliness Mask now online for Haddix, so mitigating some of that damage. Fire Giant could be the eye of interest for the Atlantis Leviathans. Rongyun Shinto here. Satman does not have his ultimate back, so if Venenu can find a way in, which I don't think he's going to be able to because Yarkor is there, this Fire Giant should go swiftly over to the Atlantis Leviathans, who have been in control of every single objective this game. 2 Furies, 2 Pyros, and now a Fire Giant under their belt.
Can I just say that when Jake dashed into Barra to run away, I just imagined full-size Barracuda jumping on Awesome Jake's back and saying, like, get me out of here, and then Jake dropped him, and unfortunately they weren't able to make it out of that one. I think not both of them died, but still, unfortunate that you just jump inside and hope that you get a safe way out there, but Panatom was able to find a good taunt back in, and Leviathans after the fact push their gold lead to a pretty massive amount. With 3 Tier 2 towers still available and to be up 8K, is hard to come back from, but I think the Bolts also have a decent turtle comp, we call it. You're able to sit in your shell and just hide underneath the Phoenix and hope that you're able to fight back. With Tusky bouncing around and underneath the Phoenix, you're going to get the full value of that more often than not. Spirit of the Nine Winds, once that Obsidian Shard is built, we'll be chunking pretty much everyone on the map, as well as the fact that Haddix still looks pretty unkillable given the damage numbers and the defense that he's been able to build. So there are some ways for the Olympus Bolts to fight back, but Leviathans have been looking pretty on point here, and they are just dissecting the map, invading as many camps as possible, trying to get another Trebuchet for themselves. A Pyromancer following suit, and that Tier 2 tower on left is going to be the next one on the chopping block.
Shinto and Zatman can take that one down with no problem whatsoever. And add another Pyromancer, at least for the Atlantis Leviathans, to continue to build up that gold lead. 10K now with that Tier 2 going down. And it's only getting harder for the Olympus Bolts to fight back in with every bit of gold and every bit of experience still being relevant. A couple of players have hit level 20 on Leviathan, so that experience lead is going to matter less and less as time goes on, but the Bolts are fighting for scraps in their own jungle at this point.
Yeah, now it looks like they are going to posture towards a defense for this Tier 2 tower. They have a fair bit of tank stats with Haddix as the frontliner. Panatom is going to try and steal away a speed buff, but gets a little bit of damage towards himself and will have to back off. As long as Jake and Haddix are able to stand here, Barracuda's got chunked, by the way.
Yeah, Barracuda eats a Spirit Ball. Leviathans are having a tough time pushing in. You talk about the turtle comp, Venenu, the perfect god to do so. Drop a tornado and walk away, but it doesn't seem that dropping the tornado is quite enough. He'll throw one more out, but Leviathans can tank up this Tier 2 tower for a little while longer, grab some extra gold, and then make their retreat. Or maybe Leviathans push a little bit further. No, their answer will instead be maybe look now towards this right side Tier 2, the last one standing.
Yeah, they got about 1:30 left on this Fire Giant buff. You want to make the most of it. I mean, given the fact that they have so much gold, they've done enough. And Ronq took the red buff there, so he's going to be chunking. Get ready to see an abduct hit for like
150.
110 or
I was
something.
going to say 150.
All right, that's crazy. What do you think? He's got a 3K pod? No, this is just red buff, man.
You're right, my mistake. I'm thinking he had a little bit more than that. Maybe we see the Rising Dawn hit for 11 a tick instead of 10, too.
That would be wild. I'm expecting to see that. The Primal Fury is up, and Shinto might be able to pull that one. If the tier 2 tower right still stands tall, so I don't think the base is going to be cracked with this one. 55 seconds left on that Fire Giant buff. Leviathan still playing smart, dropping the circle protection even with no one around, just in case. You want to make sure that every bit of gold goes your way, and you don't want to give the Olympus Bolts any room back to climb into this match. Given the power spikes that could be coming through here, a level 20 Cuckoo gets a lot more damage with that Pendulum. Barracuda's still level 17, so he's got a ways to go before a Death's Embrace or a Death's Temper are going to be coming his way. And awesome, Jake's one level away. That's something. He could get, you know, the Sentinel's Embrace or the Sentinel's Boon, respectively. That could help him out a little bit. I was just looking towards the carries, and I got sad. That Artemis is going to take some time before she gets an upgrade starter.
Yeah, Barracuda definitely falling behind more than anybody else on the team, as so many of his waves were starved out at the tier 1 tower by Zapman. Very early on in the game, we saw wave freezing by Zap, making sure that Barracuda had to either step very far forward to get any of his XP or just have to give it up entirely through. And now we're starting to see that reflected as the game continues on. Even Lazar level 18 in the jungle hasn't had much time, but with Haddock sitting level 20, does have his upgraded starter item, so a little bit tankier for this front line. And he's going to need every bit of defense possible because
They're
now
going for Phoenix?
there are 5 Leviathans pushing up the right side Phoenix. Even Panatom standing by within the jungle.
They don't have fire.
But with the Fire Giant off, the Leviathans will see the defense of the Bolts and back away.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, I admire the aggression, but what about this Phoenix Siege looks better than the left side Phoenix Siege? Because you don't have the Fire Giant buff anymore, and I think the Leviathans also thought that, and they have decided to back off. The gold lead is similar. You've essentially just lost map state and lost a buff on yourself. So, you know, smart call to back off there. Just didn't seem that beneficial to go for. Surprising to see that Panatom went for the Hidden Blade. Usually we see the Mannequin Mace on these auto attack style junglers, but Hidden Blade has been coming into the meta in a huge way. The Ratatoskers have been building it. We see the Neaths building it, but I'm talking about jungle specifically. Even though Panatom's building an auto attack style build with Executioner and Chin Size, still putting some stock in the ability damage that will provide. Just the pin itself will take away tons of damage if you want to blink in and set that up. No one from the Bolts is going to be defending this one, so this will be a free Fire Giant for the Leviathans, as they are just trying to get some farm on the left side of the map. Haddox is keeping the right side minions pushed up as much as possible, and it looks like the Leviathans actually want the right side Phoenix first, and that's what they're going to group around.
And it seems that the Leviathans' answer to how do we deal with this ultra tanky Robin that seems to be undying, so hard to kill, has been to literally play everywhere except where that Robin has been. This will be one of the first big team fights where Haddox will have his presence known, and the Bolts are going to need a defense up against the Leviathans here. Shinto will get hit by some of the damage from Haddox, but will be able to jump away. The shields from Wrong Yu proving to be just as fruitful as the one that Haddox has around his own health bar. Panatom rooted in the tower, but another shield, another sustain against Panatom. Good lord, that Phoenix now starting to hit up against him, though.
Yeah, Haddox's shield has not left, and he's the front line of the Bolts. To get to the bird, you gotta get through me, and I'm a Robin that is very difficult to kill. So it looks like they will just back off and not go for the right side Phoenix anymore. And this is where the issue starts, right? I think the Leviathans should start splitting their attention, saying, hey, we're gonna send, I don't know, Panatom and Yarkor to that mid lane, and then we'll have Wrong Yu, Zap, and Shinto stay left. Split up the attention of the Bolts. Doesn't really matter if you have an unkillable Robin if he's not at the fight that you're trying to take. As long as one of those Phoenixes go down, that's going to be a net win. You got plenty of time to play with as well. 2 minutes and 40 seconds on the Fire Giant buff. You can wait and get it enhanced if you really want to, but look at the gold lead. The Leviathans are climbing their way to a 20,000 gold lead. I don't think they care too much about anything else on the map. They want to break the base, and they want to do it quickly.
They definitely do. The problem is that last Phoenix Siege, there really wasn't much of an attempt there by the Leviathans. It looked like they walked up and kind of did a heat check to see what they could get, and Panatom, well, he got a lot of damage thrown his way, put him down to about 30% health, and from there, the Leviathans just turn tail and run immediately after, just because of the front lining of Haddox. Now, a group up to the left side for the Leviathans, while Yarkor distracts a couple on the right-hand side, along with Panatom, who has not really left this side of the map just yet. Split decisions from the Leviathans. on opposite sides of the map.
This is smart. This is what you gotta do. Split the attention, get the unkillable Robin on one side of the map, and then siege the left side of the map. Everyone else has been showed they can bleed except for Awesome Jake. There's a death on everyone on the bolts except for Jake and Haddock, so if you can split them up, you should be just fine. I've got my attention on the left side of Phoenix more than the right, but it looks like Lasper's gonna have to come and help out because Haddock is just clearing waves.
Lasper misses the drop kick against Yarkor, so the 2v2 in right is still going well for the bolts. The 3v3 in left, a little bit less so. Venenu's been taking some poke from Shinto. Silence drops down, Zapman stands inside and will tank it up no problem. Left side Phoenix about half HP. Haddock still 2v1ing on this other side. And Tusky goes through, that gets the beats from Wrong Yu. Shinto still holding on to his, but the Phoenix is a lot worse for wear.
And Haddock's literally is just 2v1ing over here, and it looks like they're just gonna ignore him. They're like, bro, we're tired of trying to fight you. We're just gonna go for the Phoenix. The left side Phoenix is extremely weak. And all Haddock has to do here is try and keep this alive, but it's so difficult. Jake's gonna dash in.
Ultimate from Zapman will get some healing back to Wrong Yu. Lazarus joined the fight. The beads burn from Zapman. And a jump in by Lazarus to slow down Wrong Yu. 4 versus 3. Should be a winning fight for the Olympus Bolts. The Phoenix still stands. Wrong Yu locked into the Spear of the Nine Winds. Will clip through the ultimate. Keeps him alive a little bit longer. Gives him that speed. Dropkick is good. And the ultimate has popped, but now it's Laspra in danger.
Shinto's in the back?
Goes down as Shinto is 2v1ing in the backline. Make that a 3v1. He's now got Panatom to help him out. Wrong Yu has found one kill. Venenu so close to death. The tick's not enough to take him out.
This is absolutely absurd. Haddox was 2v1ing in right, lost unfortunately because the bird went down. And essentially Shinto just kills the backline of the bolts by himself. Wrong Yu got the ult up, and now they're looking at this
They're
Titan.
gonna need some big damage, some big defense. It's 3 versus 5 for the Olympus Bolts. The Leviathans are so close to clutching out game number 1. A pin hits Venenu in the backline. A silence drop by Jake. It's just not enough damage. They don't have the damage on the bolts to stop it. The Atlantis Leviathans will take game number 1.
And it doesn't matter if you have 2 unkillable tanks. If you just go around them and look for those objectives, they will go down. Haddox and Jake didn't fall that game, but it just didn't matter. If you're gonna get Lono's Mask, it nerfs your own damage. So if you don't have damage to get a kill yourself, you can't stop them from ending your Titan. That's unfortunately the way that things went that time, and Leviathan showed a very dominant performance. Again, Shinto was in the back line just like 1v3 on that ruler. Insane play from the mid laner of the Leviathans.
Yeah, Leviathans come up with a big win in game number 1, and they answer the question, how to deal with this tanky Robin? You just ignore him. Walk around him, do anything that you want. As long as it's not around him, it doesn't matter. Leviathans take game 1. Can they hold that momentum in game 2? We'll find out right after this.
high-octane game of Smite comes to the close, and it's the Atlantis Leviathans that are on top after game number 1. The Olympus Bolts left a bit by the wayside here during this game. Better macro play, better chess match, and all of it played on top of the line Alienware PCs. Not only can I look at the stats from that game on my Alienware computer, production is running everything on Alienware PCs in the back, and then our players playing on Alienware as well. And guess what? You at home can play Smite just like that on Alienware gear yourself. Head on over to smitegame.com/Alienware and use code AWSmite09 for discounts on select Alienware gear. Thanks again to Alienware for powering us this year in Season 9 of the Smite Pro League. My name is Dolson Mifflin, again, with me to break down game number 1. Miff, there's not a whole lot to break down here, is there? We had like 3 kills in the first 30-something minutes of this game. Macro, farm. I think you said it yourself. The chess lovers of Smite would really love this match.
Yeah, so if you like chess, maybe go watch the VOD, or hopefully you were already watching. If you had just tuned in, that's the match that we just had. It was a whole lot of macro play. The Leviathans just had a stranglehold on the map, and once they were allowed to look towards those objectives, it was very difficult at times for the Olympus Wolves to even work their way in. But I think maybe the most interesting part of this matchup was how the Leviathans dealt with this incredibly tanky front line of the Olympus Bolts. Oh, you don't take damage? Guess I won't hit you with it then. I'll simply walk past, and it worked out very well for the Leviathans. Haddix, a non-factor, I believe, to end the game, triple goose-egged, 0-0 and 0, and the Olympus Bolts.
Riveting.
When Haddix can't get active, I suppose have some issues. Maybe small micro misplays at times cost them out. I think in the very last team fight, Lazra, a little bit too soon on his auto attack, would have gotten a kill in the Scare's Blessing and effectively doubled the kills of the Olympus Bolts, but unfortunately not the case. And as you said, I don't think there's much to break down there.
Shinto, 3 kills, does it all in this game. A fantasy point graveyard in this game. 74,000 damage mitigated by Yarkor, though.
That goes nuts.
A hefty number for Yarkor. The Robin solo just not given the opportunity to do it. And that might be... Do you think that's one of the more frustrating styles of games to lose if you're the Bolts? Where it felt like maybe you can't look at a specific moment where the team fight went bad or somebody overextended, whatever it may be, but you just kind of slowly lose everything on the map. Do you think that is one of the more frustrating ways to lose Smite?
I will say, and I'm not even speaking about Smite directly right now, I want to say about losing any video game in general, it's time-based. If I lose and it takes 2 minutes and I couldn't do anything, it's like, all right, that was 2 minutes.
Right.
If I lose and I know I'm losing at the 5-minute mark and I look up at 15 and I'm still losing, and I look up at 25 and I'm still losing, and I look up at 35 and I finally lost, what are you thinking to yourself? Like, I knew it was going down 30 minutes ago. That's the frustration. But the Olympus Bolts, a team that I think...
Yeah, thank God you're not on that team,
Yeah,
right?
my mental shattered immediately, man. I'm looking up, and I'm like, oh, God. I'm throwing the F6 vote up, for sure.
I do appreciate that Lasber's really leaned into the Prime MVP crown. And he's worn it well. He did wear it well in our first match of the week where they took down the Valhalla Valkyries. Didn't show us much in the first game of this set, and to be fair to him, nobody, Leviathans or otherwise, gave us much in game number 1. So a clean game from the Leviathans, but very, very slow in the kills fighting department. Just sort of out-pressured the Bolts all game long. So, adjustments to be made, maybe. Khepri is one adjustment. Also the Emoja taken away. I think smart to have Rongyu's best picks, if not his best picks for sure. And 2 strong picks just in general. I'm surprised that Xing Chen from Jake is getting consistent bans. Now back-to-back games, the Leviathans have taken it away.
Yeah, I think the Xing Chen ban just really, or Xing Chen the pick, would really fit Jake's new Chronos Pendant build, because even if you are sacrificing a bit of your defensiveness, you get so much HP 5 from Xing Chen's passive that you're kind of allowed to go in, drop yourself down to about 50% HP, wait about 30 seconds, and you've got the majority of it back. And also just has a whole lot of damage built into the kit and synergizes well with the power and fusion of Chronos Pendant. So it makes sense to me that the Leviathans try and keep that out of the hands of awesome Jake. The Bolts, though, I think just correct in banning out this Khepri. I mean, Yamoja's a ban that we're never going to argue against at the pro level of play because of all these guys who are so capable of taking the game in their own hands on that selection, but specifically Rongyu, one of the best picks for him. but Khepri has been so annoying to deal with. It seems like every single team that's locked him in this what feels like single target meta just gets accosted by this Khepri. So rightfully so, I think a ban from the Bolts.
And opens up now a Daji pick for Lasbra. This feels like a pick where
He owns.
you'd really hope you wouldn't get the early game pace that we did in game number 1, early, mid, and late game pace that we got in game number 1. This pick for Lasbra carries so much weight, the weight of the prime crown, if you will. And so I think you need to see some activity from Lasbra to get the ball rolling for the Bolts here in game 2.
But Daji is in a position where you need to build a composition around her. If you're the only one, Daji that is, burning beads for your team, you're probably not doing a whole lot on Daji, because dedicating Pal just to burn beads, being one of your best survivability tools doesn't feel great, as well as being one of your best initiation tools. So I want to see some AoE CC or a couple of picks that have got good, consistent single target CC from the Bolts just to facilitate this Daji. Because when you're taking it this high up in your draft as well, you better believe that Leviathan's going to be looking towards CC immunity in their kits. Generally, Daji in the past was a 3rd pick overall, or maybe through the 2nd phase of bans, because then you open yourself up to this. Cleanse is going to be pretty hard to deal with.
And so Hell. Remember, Hell was banned by the Bolts in the 2nd wave in game 1. Not banning it, of course, in the 1st wave. So the Leviathans get a strong piece of utility for their squad. So yes, the cleanse, even for the Palau, but also good sustain throughout team fights if the Bolts return to this double hyper tank style of composition. So the Leviathans covering, I think, their bases pretty effectively here in their first couple of picks. Then Bologna, a catch-all style of solo laner that has gotten plenty of success over the last few weeks. Could consider hunters early on in the draft here. Chernobog taken away, as well as the Uller. Won't be Uller for Zapman surely again, right? No, he was on the E set in game number 1. How quickly we forget that when the game does
It
nothing.
completely slipped my mind.
I'd forgotten that Zapman was on E set because he didn't need to do anything on E set until later on in the game. I guess objective secure, things like that were strong for the Leviathans.
Think that Hell's for Zap?
Say again?
You think that Hell's going to Zap?
No.
Yeah, me either. I didn't think the E-set was going for Zap either.
Yeah, right. That's what we said about the E-set.
Yikes.
So who knows at this
No,
point.
we didn't even bring it up. I hadn't even considered the
would you?
possibility, right?
If we redo that death segment 100 times, I'm not bringing up E-set for Zapman.
I might do it once,
just as a joke,
as like
right?
a massive meme.
Right, as a huge bit.
Yeah.
Surely this Uller wouldn't be going mid, right? Yeah. That would be the 1 time in 100 that I bring up that pick. You know what, Miff? Let's make this the 1 time in 100. We bring up Hell for Zap, right? Could be Hell for Zap.
Hey, you've always got someone you're laning with, so the cleanse gets a little bit more value over in that duo lane. If you're dying in the duo to this Daji gank,
Yeah, she loves the ganks.
She goes over for the Gold Fury afterwards, so maybe Hell in the duo lane could find some action.
There we go, 1 in 100.
And it better be Zap.
The odds of Hell going to Zap are much
pretty
smaller than 1 in 100, but
Ganesh no CC immunity built into the kit. Maybe you need that Hell over there.
no chance. I think Uller opened up the door to that opportunity just because Shinto's so good on it. But no Uller, I don't think that's what we're going to be seeing.
Still out there.
We did bring it up. There's a difference. There's a difference between bringing it up and actively rooting for it to go over to Zapman. You know, I think we've covered our bases. But let's return to reality here. That is going to be Shinto on Hell and Ganesh for Rongyu. A different style of pick from what I'm used to Rongyu playing, but I'm sure he can still play it very, very well. And Terra now for the Bolts. This is something Jake has played plenty in the past, not so much as of late. I suppose you can build Chronos Pendant on Terra. I don't know if you want to, though.
Yeah, BennyQ did it. It was, didn't work so well for him, but
sure didn't.
He's also a mid laner, so I think Terra in support should have an easier time going towards it, as long as you're getting that defense online eventually. Heavy heal composition from the Bolts as well as the Leviathans, so I think anti-heal, certainly a topic of conversation. Could be that you look towards an Ankh for either of these teams. I think both would find pretty significant value.
Man.
You know, I had a conversation with the ADCs recently, like all of them, and they had told me Charybdis, like, not very good. I had asked them explicitly, so, like, who's the worst hunter in the game? Because they all seem pretty viable right now. And I think it was like 3 or 4 of them had said that it was Charybdis.
What does Zapman say?
I don't remember. Probably Charybdis.
Well, it doesn't matter. We should be asking Shinto, right? How Shinto feels about Charybdis.
That's right. That's right.
Because it's going mid. No, this Zapman, when Charybdis was good,
He was playing it every game.
it was a lot of Charybdis for Zap, because Zap loves the get out of jail free card, and Charybdis has a couple of them. So I suppose still strong, and it's a hunter, so he's scaling to the late game. Maybe not as good as others, but far from bad.
Uh-oh.
The Olympus Bolts get an AMC for mid, we'll assume, and then Freya for Barracuda, so plenty of scaling and burst later on in the game.
So this RDO will likely be left alone on an island because Daji and Taro will be spending their entire time trying to facilitate this AMC and Freya, get them to the late game. You're not really sacrificing a whole lot of damage output with this composition like we had saw from the Bolts in Game 1, so the strategy of the Leviathans to just ignore the front line probably won't be there quite as well. But if this is a battle of late game compositions,
Gilgamesh.
I still might favor the Leviathans just because they have got that hell for themselves and that immediate counter into the Daji Powwow. I suppose it all depends on how strong the dive potential is of the Bolts. If they can put pressure on a Hell so that she isn't acting as just that cleanse machine for her team, could be that this Leviathans draft just starts to fall apart from there. But other than that, Charybdis is incredibly survivable on her own. Ganesh has got some of the best peel potential of any of the supports, barring like the Gebs and Kepris of the world. Gilgamesh acting as primary initiator, very strong, and Bellona with that disarm into a double hunter auto attack composition. Daji even to a certain extent, really going to struggle up against that disarm. It's an interesting match. I think this one's going to come up to pacing yet again. If the Leviathans are just pulling ahead by natural game state like we saw in Game 1, the Bolts will certainly struggle. But I think the likelihood of that happening here in Game 2 is a lot lower.
Let me ask you the same question, but from the other side. As much as you hate losing a game the way the Bolts did in Game 1, do you think it's equally as fun to win a game that way? Where
No.
from like minute 1 until minute 35 to 40?
Well, competitively, yes.
Right.
In competitive Smite, a win's a win's a win.
Yeah, of course.
You don't care how long it takes, or well, you do to a certain extent care how long it takes. But it is very nice. But the conversation about these guys, the top players in the world, is wins are expected. You're not expecting a loss, which is why it stings all the more so. When the win becomes the expectation, it doesn't feel good. That's just the natural state, right?
Right.
Whereas losses feel real bad.
Yeah, I guess that tracks, Smith. I suppose I'm trying to wrap my mind around that. I've never been a competitor at the highest level like you have, Smith.
You played like lacrosse D1, I thought.
I played Division I club lacrosse, which is so much different. So much different. I am paying money to play that. The school is not giving me money.
That's awesome, man.
I'm
I'm
paying
sorry.
the university.
I didn't mean to laugh.
No, it's funny. I mean, we practiced 3 days a week and traveled around and stuff. That was pretty cool, but like, had a beer before practice, so it's not like actual D1 sports. I don't think these players are doing the same thing before going into their match.
How old were you? This is high school?
No. Oh my God, Myth. This is college.
Oh yeah, D1. Yeah, D1 club lacrosse.
Good God. I don't know. Myth and I are just we're allergic to having one normal death segment, I suppose. Do you think the Leviathans, Myth, in the way that they have drafted their composition, have the ability to just sort of slowly bleed out the Bolts in the same way that they did in Game 1?
Yeah, I think so. This is a composition that is incredibly safe across the board. Hell, just able to resustain. Charybdis, of course, with all her immunities.
Yep.
So hard to shut down, and the pacing of that jungle from Gilgamesh very high.
Well, I know a couple guys who want the exact same pace of game as Game 1. It's J-Mac and Trelly.
Thank you so much, Dave and Myth. Jumping into Game 2 between the Bolts and the Leviathans. And a new look now out of the Bolts, Trelly, to say the least. Haddix going back onto this RTO that brought your core success in the prior game. And then Barracuda going over towards this Freya, who's been a rising pick as of recent with her buffs that came through on the last patch. A lot of hunters have really been looking at this goddess.
No, the new look is this Zapman guy's playing a hunter. I've never seen him.
That's true. Yeah, that's
weird.
a weird one. I haven't seen that hunter in some time.
Yeah, this Zapman's the mage guy.
What god is that again?
I don't know. Zapman's the mage guy. I saw him play E-Sit last game. Looked real good. Let's see if he can hit auto attacks. I don't know. I'm not buying it.
No, in all seriousness, this Charybdis, Zapman, one of the first players to bring this god out whenever it first got released, and we got to see just how potent of a god it is. I mean, we always talk about Zapman as kind of the lightning rod of aggression for the Leviathans. You know, he's the one that on Leviathans they'll kind of sacrifice him and then win a team fight immediately after. And on the debut of this Charybdis, that man lived for like 10 or 12 seconds during a fight where there were 3 people chasing him between his Whirlpool, his ultimate, beads, and Aegis. So lots of time to be bought in a perfect god for Zapman, who's often the one being dove by many teams.
But you know when you don't want to be holding a lightning rod? When you're up against the bolts.
You know what? That's very fair.
And Zapman.
I can't believe you hit me with
and
that.
there you
I'm
go.
Not, I'm not
He's
even upset that you did it.
He's getting shocked in this lane.
No, he's getting hit with pulses.
Yeah, surprisingly.
Not of electricity.
Surprisingly, Freya with this conduit gem style build actually has been getting a ton of pressure. You think of Freya, and you think of her as this late game centric hard carry, but has been finding a lot of success.
Ooh.
Beautiful double stun into the whoop.
Barracuda needs a couple more, but now that it's level 2 for Zap, he will have the Whirlpool form to get on out, but falling dangerously low. Barracuda again on point with these banishes.
Yeah, and a double stun by Jake to set it up as well. So lots of pressure coming the way of the duo lane of the Olympus Bolts. They don't want to let Zap get off to a good start, and they want this Charybdis to be as unsafe in lane as possible, despite the fact that she has that get out of jail free card with the Whirlpool form. Just any sort of pressure in that lane, I think, will go a long way, and I expect to see a lot more of that aggression, just because Freya, with that conduit gem, is going to be able to clear the wave just more effectively, and those pulse autos start slowing you, and it just gets so annoying. So that's why Wrong You and Zap are staying a little bit far back, and is giving a little bit of pressure up for now. Maybe they'll start to get aggressive later on when they get some more abilities online.
Yeah, I mean, you can already see the extra pressure that it puts on those minions with up that conduit. Haddix in a 2v1, a jump in by Panatom, and the drop kick on the minion hits Haddix. But that's all it's going to do is just tap him and then a walk away. Jake finds a double root in the back line of the dual lane. Zapman taking a little bit of extra damage out here, but he should be fine considering Barracuda is nowhere in the same realm as Awesome Jake until the wave has now regroups itself once again.
Yeah, and I'm looking at the junglers once again, and I'm seeing a Daji for Laspra, who's had a tremendous split phase on this Daji specifically. He's been able to find a lot of, even against things like the Hell, right, where you have this cleanse you have to worry about. Daji just does damage as well, just so much, and I'm expecting to see him join the duo lane here, trying to get this Freya ahead. Awesome Jake was just going for that solo invade where you get the minis, and then go back and join your own lane partner where you can get your purple buff. It's going to take a little bit of XP away from the opposition, and more than anything, it's just going to be annoying. Top of the damage charts are both of the duo laners of the Olympus Bolts because they've been getting extremely active in that lane, and I think they're going to continue to do so. We've been highlighting it already. The Freya, she kind of swings right now.
Yeah, she definitely do be hurting not just the minions but enemy gods, and a little bit earlier than she used to do so. And you can see that pressure that Barra and Jake have been able to put up in the duo. They were about a half a level up over Zapman and Wrong You going into that wave, and can maybe put it very similar to the opposite pacing that was in game number 1, where Wrong You and Zapman were the ones getting advantage in the lane, being able to freeze waves at the tower line. Maybe we see Zapman and Wrong You do something similar here to try and slow down the Bolts duo.
Yeah, it certainly could be possible. Just sitting back on a pick like Freya, you don't want to be pushing up. It's the same as the Artemis, right? You don't want to push up all the way to tower line for just your XP, just for your farm. You would love to have that Valkyrie's Discretion whenever you need and use that as your escape tool and never have that forced. But if you're standing the tower line, eventually someone's going to come over and force that ultimate. So Barracuda going to try to hold on to that as much as possible. Level 4, so it doesn't even have a point into it, but I'm talking as the lane goes on. If it was to be frozen, that's a worst case scenario for a Freya in that lane specifically. So just trying to clear the wave as much as possible. And Awesome Jake will be going that Chronos Pendant start that they were talking about on the desk with even Terra. It doesn't really matter the pick. Jake just likes building Chronos Pendant, man. He likes the cooldowns. He likes to try and set up for his squad, and he's tired of sitting back and having these supports be the relic bots not doing any damage. Jake's going to be changing the way of the support meta.
Well, to be fair, he didn't build it last game. Maybe that's why they lost. They end up going Thieves into...
That's what I'm saying. He's tired of it.
Thieves and Alono's Mask, I believe, was the first 2 items in game number 1. Immediately going into that Chronos Pendant this time around. We'll throw up the wall, but Wrong You will backstep that one and be just fine from there. Interesting first item out of Yark Core. Typically when we've been seeing the magical solos that people go up against, it's things like the Genji's Guard or the Oni Hunters, even Shoguns, depending on what you're going. First item Pestilence out of Yark Core seems a little interesting to me, Charlie.
Yeah, he just played that RDO, and he was like, man, I was healing a lot. And then he's lined up and lane against Haddix. He's like, wait, now he's going to be healing a lot. So now that he starts that Pestilence, shouldn't have to worry about it too much. And it also helps that There's a Terra on the opposition.
True.
There's an AMCE who's going to get some hive healing, and there's a Freya who just has that lifesteal built in. So just a ton of value.
Also true.
And you don't have to do much for it. You just exist. That's the benefit of aura items, J-Mac. They help you out. You don't have to hit any abilities. Isn't that crazy?
You just gotta be there, and sometimes that can even be the hardest part. Sometimes that's the hardest part is being able to stay alive during the fights long enough to get some value from there. But Yarkor in last game was able to get plenty of value staying in fights. Lasbra close to a pick onto Panatom, teleports in, but a heal from Shinto. Now it's an ultimate in, and a cleanse from Shinto. Make sure Panatom's fine. One more heal and one stinger from Venenu will put the bolts on the board at 6 minutes.
Yeah, beautiful kill there from Lasbra. Then gets the credit from it, but Lasbra forced out everything, gets the cleanse down from Shinto. So at least holding on to the beads, Panatom didn't have to use those ones with the stinger from Ven, able to claim that life, and now some pressure going the way of the mid laner. We saw Shinto out farm very hard last game, just because he was able, on this Ullr, just had so much presence. Now Ven's on the hunter. Now Ven can say, hey, you puny mage, I'm going to farm as quickly as possible, run to everything, and he is level 8 first. You know, Shinto is still Shinto, and I expect him to find as much farm on the map as possible, but doesn't really have that Doom Orb start. Going for the Warlock staff, it's going to take him a while to run to these camps. He's not quite as fast as he could have been on that Ullr.
You puny mage. It's not a phrase I thought I would have heard anytime soon, but here we are in 2022. What month are we in? We're almost in July. Good Lord. Where has the time gone, Trelly? So far, the first 6 minutes has gone the way of the Olympus Bolts. Dual lane pressure has been able to net Barracuda some space in this game that he didn't get to have in the last game. Haddox wants to be able to make some more strides in this game compared to last time, where the Leviathans just completely outright ignored the solo laner. Haddox ended with an 0-0-0 slash line, didn't get to be a part of any kills, didn't even die. He was just a body existing at that point, but unfortunately, he wasn't enough of a body to exist in that game.
Yeah, I think that's the issue. Being unkillable is all well and good, but you also have to be able to return some damage. The threat from these solo laners in the early to mid game is that, yeah, they are able to die, but they also can 1v1 these carries because they don't have enough damage online. If you're building full tank like that, you just get ignored. So already Haddox making some changes in the draft alone. The RDO is going to have to be built a little bit differently, and the Conduit Gem will make sure that you get a little bit of extra damage throughout the clear. And the Totem of Coup control at least should be going the way of Paxley, so as long as one more ability goes his way. So just being able to box a lot better up in this lane, even though not a traditional auto attacker. I guess the word box sort of implies you're throwing punches, but it's like some bear claws.
But yeah, about to say, she RDO swipes her hands, but
yeah, some bear swipes.
Here's the thing: is Yarkor doesn't throw hands, though. He throws like literally every weapon in his arsenal. Where does he even keep? Where does Bullet even keep those? Is it just like? Is it like the one like magic sword that transforms into every single potential thing that you would ever need?
Yeah, I suppose she's jacked. She can just hold.
Form of a scourge, just like pops it out immediately, and then form of a hammer, and just pops that one out there.
Once we get a look at a different ability, we'll be able to see, I suppose.
No, we stick to the scourge. That's all that she's allowed to have
Yard,
now.
you got it.
She gotta go back to base to use that.
There we go.
Oh,
we missed it.
It does just transform. It's not like she grabs one out of her back pocket. She just turns it into it. As you can see, she goes back to the scourge. Yeah, see, the sword just like extended out to become a scourge. It's just one weapon.
Yeah, so RDO is boxing with
She's got the transformer of weapons.
Yeah, just with her bare hands, and Polona's got to bring a bunch of weapons. So, if anything, I think Haddox deserves the level lead that he's been able to accrue.
Where's this conversation gone? I'm sorry, I derailed the heck out of this one.
I mean, it's, you know, they're farming, and we just watched the blue buff go down, so there's not too much action being had just yet. Barracuda is at Gold Fury at the moment, so was looking for a little bit of aggression. Even if a clutch banish lands onto Zapman, he'll just use the whirlpool form and zoom on out of there. Without those, yeah, exactly. Without those junglers showing some face on the left side of the map, there's not going to be too much more targeted aggression. Lasbra's been trying. He's been consistently on the upper half of the map. He found Panatom once, and he's been trying to do it again, but just a too much presence. The Shinto on this hell is always going to have a cleanse just locked and ready when you are trying to go for that pull, so not the easiest. Wrong you, though. It's going to take a little bit of damage. Has to beat and ult.
Barracuda chasing out, goes into Valkyrie's discretion, but that second and third shot just off the mark. Look at Yarkor teleported over and could maybe start up for a Gold Fury pull by the Leviathans, or maybe some pressure on the map. But the Bolts, recognizing that Yarkor did teleport to their left side of the map, have now made their way over to the Pyromancer, but Shinto is here. This is not going to go entirely for free unless Haddox can keep that zone duty up. Meanwhile, left side of the map is where some of the aggression of the Leviathans are. Purple buff will be stolen away, but at the end of the day, it's the Pyro for the Bolts.
Yeah, I mean, he teleported over. You might as well find something. A purple buff is not going to help when Haddix is taking the Totem of Ku and pushing a full wave underneath your tower. But it's a decent prize, right? It's going to help out the duo lane a little bit. Rongyu got some aggression thrown his way. He had to drop the Dharmic Pillars and the beads. So at least Yarkor is able to go over there and alleviate some of that stress. And actually, Zapman's a level up, so that is going to help out a little bit. I'm gonna give credit to the teleport there. I think maybe just a scared call where Rongyu's like, they're diving me, can you come over? He came over, alleviated some of that stress, and got a little bit of XP for the ADC.
Well, for now, Barracuda farming up for his second ring. Actually started the hasten ring, which is why a lot of that chase was even allowed to happen on the left, as he was able to just hold the gas pedal and W key at the enemy. Doing the same thing here. Whirlpool form comes out again to get the knockup on Barracuda. But that's all that Zapman has, at least in his tank, for fighting. Most of his kit now used just to clear the wave.
Yeah, he did just get forced into the Whirlpool and back to just chilling underneath that tower. The Itchavol into a whole myriad of items could come next. The Executioner if you want to shred for your damage dealers. The Aussie if you just want some extra sustain. The ADC builds right now are so different for everyone. It really just depends on who you are and what style of build you would like to go for. However, I do expect to see, as the same little interaction we just saw, where Zap got a little scared, went under the ground, and then came back out. I do expect to see a lot of damage numbers flying from Shinto. Already has that fully stacked Warlock Sash. Does tick over to level 12. Hasn't got that second relic yet, but has the option to. And then the Soul Reaver finished very early on, so going to be chunking through some of the HP of the opposition. Haddix notably has a fair bit already built with the Jade Emperor's Crown, and Jake's got Sovereignty as well, so that's going to help out.
Yeah, it will be an Aussie and an Aegis picked up by Zap on that back. So a little bit of extra life steal and sustain, a little bit of penetration, and then a little bit of extra defense if Charybdis wasn't already safe with Whirlpool form, the Maw ultimate, and beads, now throwing the Aegis for a little bit more time delay for more than anything. And for Zapman in these 1v1s, that's really what it feels like he needs, is just delay. He's not going to outbox Barracuda this early in the game without crit. So it seems that his call to that is just jump in the Whirlpool, delay a few seconds, make sure that Barracuda loses out on some of that time to use those pulses.
Yeah, then you can just life steal up with your Aussie as Jake forces the Whirlpool. And nothing else will come from that because it's always going to be up. This is why Laspera is not hanging out on the left side of the map, because everyone can do that. Everyone can force the Whirlpool. It doesn't mean you can actually chase it down. Still has the beads and the Maw to immune the pull in after the fact. Much more of your time could be spent in the mid lane. Shinto pretty immobile on this pick, and Phantom will blink in rather, get the beats, and jump out. So now Ven's going to have to hold on to that cooldown for about 2 minutes. Could be in some trouble. If we're looking for a counter opportunity, Rongyu could just drop the Dharmic Pillars. No way to immune that slow. Unless Awesome Jake's around, then he could just sprint him out of there. That could be some trouble. But getting the beads down to small win. And since the Leviathans haven't really been able to find a kill or too much gold in this match, given the fact that the bolts are up about 2K, would be a nice place to look at. A kill on Ven could be nice.
Laspera will try and get some Oracle Harpy vision for his team. Does manage to grab those before Rongyu and Shinto close the gap. Awesome Jake misses the root onto Shinto. The cleanse is already expended by Shinto now, and a couple of ultimates drop through. Laspera going to try pulling Shinto, but the beads will be at him out. Panatom gets pulled back in and is slowed down. The winds are not helping him out. Zapman manages to find one kill in the fight. It's a 1-for-1 trade, but now a surrounding of Zapman. His Aegis is down, his beads are down, his ult used to try and get away. Use the bomb, but doesn't find anybody with it. Laspera will go right back in, and the swipes and the bleed are not enough. The whoop from Para is going to need a little bit more follow-up. Haddix will find it, and it's now 3 versus 3 in the mid.
Yeah, but Haddix could have a root on a Shinto here. Forces out the Aegis. Has the damage to try and dive this, but so much sustain is going the way of Shinto. I don't know if they have the damage to try and out-DPS the heals from this hell.
Not going to be enough. That disarm is slowing him down. Yarkor is just too tanky, but Haddix is too, and so goes Shinto to the solo laner. Haddix gets knocked up. A double banish once again from Barracuda, and the pulses are raiding through. Rongyu is falling low. A couple more shots will be all that it takes. Awesome Jake grabs it. Yarkor is still tanky and is still boxing and holding back 3, and he will prevent the delayed deicide for the bolts.
All 3 of the magic damage dealers on the side of the bolts were just going off there. Great CC chains from all of them. Haddix was in the backline consistently dealing with Shinto. I thought maybe just had too much sustain to actually find a death there, but too many CDR. Too much CDR from Haddix. It was just the abilities kept climbing. When you're up against a stand switcher, the one with breastplate is going to win out there, and it was just too much as Zapman tried to step up and go for a steal opportunity. Was not there in time. Massive swing in favor for the Bolts. Got to give credit to Ven, who got a bunch of damage off and did die, but his beads were gotten first. Panatom and Zap had to overextend to make sure that kill goes down. And now it looks like the Leviathans are going to try and grab the Pyromancer after the fact, but Lasper's here.
Lasper is here. The Leviathans haven't given up on this one yet. They've just slowed down their DP. I can't even say slowed down. They don't really have a whole lot of burn. I thought maybe one of the damage dealers was there up in the Pao-Lao. And the Leviathans will get the Pyromancer, but 3 get pulled back in. Awesome Jake finds the ultimate, and the Cuts will get that ultimate to start burning through. Awesome Jake continues his dash forward. The wall will block in wrong. You has nowhere to go. Stunned down, and the Elephant will fall down.
That was a sick wall by Jake there to make sure that Rongu falls down once again. Pyromancer does go the way of the Leviathans, but the pick back for the Bolts. The question is, what do they do with this man advantage? A tier 1 tower in mid could be the option. Barracuda does have that Trebuchet in left, but has not sent it. Will just be going and farming the normal way. Shinto cannot step up, and I think this tower will go down pretty freely. So despite the fact that losing the Pyromancer, they're going to get even more gold. I don't know if they're going to stop there.
This is a much different look from the Bolts in game number 2. Game 1, they were waiting for late game. They were waiting for Haddix to be that unkillable presence, and it never came to them. This time, much more active. Haddix does get drop-kicked into the tower, but he'll be fine. Winter Smosh suspended all the while by the Leviathans, and a massive teamfight ultimate burn to try and get the kill on Haddix, but unsuccessful in doing so.
Yeah, the kick into the tier 2 tower, I thought he might have been in some danger, but so tanky is this RDO. Has the upgraded heroic teleport already, the pestilence online to deal with some of that healing coming the way of Shinto, and any bit of lifesteal that any of these players on the Leviathan side want to go for. So I don't see a world where Haddix dies until Zap gets another item online. It's just too much DPS, not enough penetration on the side of the Leviathans. Just Pestilence alone should be enough to sustain through Shinto's damage. Hell does have a ton of burst damage, but also wants to sustain and help out and sit in that cleanse stance, the light stance rather, for the cleanse, because Lasper's pull is just so threatening. The Pao-Lao could always be an option. You got to be ready. If you're caught in dark stance when that Pao-Lao comes out, you might not be able to switch in time.
Yeah, it's going to force your beads out and maybe force the beads of any of your teammates who happen to be caught in the crossfire. For now, the Olympus Bolts with about a 4,000 gold lead, the first, I can't really say real lead that they've been able to have. They've been leading the entire game up against the Atlantis Leviathans, where in game 1 it was the opposite. The Leviathans were taking every single objective and had a significant lead over the Bolts. But now that Haddix has been able to get involved in this game, 2-0-2 on the RDO, making a massive impact in these early team fights, it's shown a completely different sign of light, at least out of the Olympus Bolts.
Yeah, and it looks like Panatom and Zapman are wrapping around Barracuda. Laspra's here, though, and Barra gets kicked in the face and forced to beats.
Laspra does go in with the Trickster Spirit, does have his Pao-Lao, but won't need it for the kill. It'll just be the raw damage alone. Whirlpool form will get Zapman out, use the beads, and uses the Maw. The ace is available, and Haddix will continue to chase. And with Awesome Jake here, not much more that Zapman can do. Tier 1 tower will be fine. Yarkor gets hit by the Banish, but not much more chase from the Leviathans.
Yeah, it looks like Haddix is just trying to fend them off. Laspra's back in base at the moment, so on the way, there's no real objective to look at. 1 minute 30 left on that Primal Fury. A pick here could be pretty disastrous, and I think both teams recognize that, so aren't going to force anything. The pick on the Panatom should be enough. I don't think the Bolts are going to be hungry for more. They're just going to try and get some vision down and not overextend before this big objective.
Pick themselves up one more Trebuchet as well, as those offerings have been finished out. So one in each of the 2 side lanes for the Olympus Bolts. That can get them some pressure around either objective that they may need. And all that started off with an engagement onto Barracuda. It was Panatom who started the fight with Zapman up against Barracuda. Lasbra comes in shortly after to alleviate some of that pressure, and they turn around and get a kill onto Panatom. Now 3-1 for Lasbra on the Dodgy.
Barra now has as many rings as Zapman.
True.
He's got 3 rings built.
But those rings are temporary.
Yeah, that's true.
Next game he won't have them, unless he goes Freya again.
Yeah, Zap's rings are, well, Barra's got a ring. Doesn't have as many as Zap.
Yeah, doesn't have 3.
But hey, this is a new year, and I'm seeing the MVP crown on the Lasra, so who knows? I don't know. I just knew there was no action happening for a bit, and I was like, yeah, Barra's got 3 rings. 3 rings, and that's where my head went. It looks like Primal Fury is going to spawn in about 25 seconds. Making sure to get the Oracle Vision, but more than the Oracle Vision. Looks like Lasbra wants to kill on him.
Kick out of Panatom will get the Pao-Lao from Lasbra. Won't find a pull because of the cleanse. Coming from the mid laner, Zapman still in that Maw. Has not used it offensively just yet. Has only been using it as a defensive tool for his team, but it's been enough of a defense to make sure that nobody can find those clever picks on him or any of his teammates.
Yeah, and the Primal Fury finally has spawned in. You don't want to use any key relics before a big fight like that, and Panatom is not going to have the beads for well over 2 minutes. And you did get Awesome Jake's shell, though, so that could be enough of a deterrent on the Olympus Bolt to try and pull this one. It looks like hi-rez is already frontlining here, ready, seeing if he can try and strip anything, maybe a root just to force out some abilities, or a relic, that sort of thing. It look like the Gold Fury is going to be the option. Duo lane could be seeing a little bit of a scrap because Shinto is here, and they're looking at Awesome Jake.
Awesome Jake taking a bit of poke from Zap and Shinto, but not enough to really deter the support Terra from being able to step back up. hi-rez is already at the Gold Fury. Realizes there are 5 Leviathans staring him down. He'll get some good return fire right away, but the Primal Fury is already pulled, and it's down to about half HP. Keep your eyes on Lasbra on the right side of the fight, but keep your eyes on the Dharmic Pillars that have locked in 4. Wind to Shamash will force a couple of ultimates and a couple of relics out. But everyone on the bolts are still healthy. Jake pops his ultimate. Lasbra trying to dive into the backline, but has to use his defensive moves to get on out. Yarkor 1 hit away from death, and will find it. Venenu with the first kill of the fight.
Yeah, and they're going to chase this one down with hi-rez headlining. Lasbra does have the Trickster Spirit available, but there's still a Primal Fury here. You don't have to chase that too hard if you want to get a big win. The Primal Fury could be the option, as Awesome Jake is going to try and keep the rest of the Leviathans out.
This Primal Fury is doing a lot of damage. A whoop onto Panatom, and the pulse fires from Barracuda are shredding through the Gilgamesh. That's the first set fight of this one down. And the cleanse from Shinto will make sure that Zapman and himself do not get pulled into the Pal-Lao. But Barracuda still face-taking anything that he can.
Yeah, whenever I see a kill come through, more often than not, it's led by Barracuda's pulse auto attacks and the stinger from Venenu. They're just doing so much damage here, and you gotta give credit to the stun that set it all up. Awesome Jake making sure to frontline for that fight. Could be in some trouble here, Zapman. Unless Barracuda is able to wrap around. He is going deep here. The Maws are already down. The Whirlpool's down. It looks like he's trying to take this fight.
Barracuda on the backside of the fight with the teleport in from Yarkor. This could be trouble for Barra. Dharmic Pillars and an Eagles Rally finds 2. But Barra's got the whoop, and Anu is here. Throws the stinger against Zapman. Maybe not the target that they were looking for. The Monolith does get broken, but Rongyu's health bar is also being broken. A stun out of Awesome Jake. And some good damage out of Venenu will force the Leviathans back again.
Yeah, this fight is the fight that will never end. The Primal Fury went down quite some time ago, but it looks like finally the Olympus Bolts will be able to back up and spend some of that gold that they were able to get. Yarkor's teleports have been on point, honestly. It just seems like whenever he's there, he's deterring some of the aggression from the Olympus Bolt, and it could have been a lot worse if he didn't show his face there. Lasbra's got 3K gold in hand at the moment, almost 3K, 2,800 to be exact. He could clearly upgrade that starter item. He's also trying to get that Heartseeker online. He's looking for an item after the fact, and Pyromancer's up, so why not get that in the process? You got nothing but time, and Panatom's far away. Yarkor could walk up and has the Scourge available, but given the DPS and the positioning, should go the way of the Bolts.
These Bolts do get the Pyromancer, and they've got the aggressive position around fire, but I think you're right to call that Lasbra needs to go back to base and spend out some of that gold. It will be a Bumbus Hammer locked in for the Dodgy. The Olympus Bolts, at least hi-rez, will stand up to the wave and try and keep some pressure on the right side. Zapman is nowhere near the side of the map, though, so keep your eyes there because Barracuda has rotated to the right.
Yeah, that tells us one thing and one thing only. I was going to say Fire Giant, but maybe Yarkor actually is the contention point here. One whoop into a stinger could be disastrous for this Bologna, and Yarkor probably sees both the carries and the support of the Bolt in his umbrella.
Well, Barracuda's got some good damage against Yarkor, just not enough to really put too much threat, especially with Shinto still standing by. Some good heals will make sure that Yarkor gets back up to full HP. Zapman went back to base and has now rotated himself over to the right side of the map. It's just Lasbra who hasn't fully rejoined the team. He'll be in the mid lane pushing up some waves, and he'll take his way back. Now that he has enough gold for that Heartseeker, he can now rejoin the fight at full strength.
Yeah, it was unfortunate. When he did back, he had 100 gold off of Heartseeker, and I was like, what's he going to do? So he went over, pushed a wave, thought about doing the support buff, and was like, you know what, I'm just going to back. You guys can go for Yarkor. I need Heartseeker really bad, and I'm going to sit around and wait for it. As Barrett did get the upgrade on that Nimble Rod of Tahuti's going to be attacking even quicker. We touched on the 3 rings, but the Nimble Rod is going to make sure that this Freya's damage is even faster, and that's a scary thought because he's already top of the damage charts, at least was before that little scuffle. Let's see if he has continued, and he is. So
Yeah.
I'm going to keep my eyes on Barracuda as he continuously shreds everything and everyone in front of him.
I wonder what his attack speed is right now with just those 4 items, because we've been seeing the 4 rings go through. He's at 2.2, so he could technically buy the last ring and put himself like right next to that cap, and if somebody gets a Shogun's Kasari, it would put him over it at that point. But for now, tier 1 tower just being hit by Jake. Barracuda will finally join with Venenu to take that one down. So
Jake's
tier
going
1 in
wrong.
right.
Of
Is he going-
Asclepius,
he's
not
going-
of Tahuti.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
I had to double check myself there. I'm like, why is he getting a Rod Tahuti? No, Rod Asclepius, that's another item we don't see very often. Wrong, you will get stunned out there and it should be the end. But Rod Asclepius, that's not really a new one, but kind of a new one.
It's not a new one, but it is definitely a new item that we haven't seen in quite some time, even with healers being built. You know, the Ra of Asclepius, it's hard to get that value. However, I think Jake just enjoys seeing big damage numbers. He's going to get some healing. He's going to get some movement speed. Why not build it at this point? He's 1-0. 1-0-7 to be exact. So he's been a part of all but one of these kills. So I would say go for it. He wants to get active, and he wants to see some explosions with that ultimate. Keep getting in there and keep creating some space for your team. As long as he doesn't get burned down too quickly, and Zapman has a decent bit of damage, and Shinto has a decent bit of damage. But if you're focusing out Awesome Jake, are you really damaging the right target? No,
Jake?
I'll tell you.
Okay, cool. I'm glad you answered for me. Fire Giant started up by the Olympus Bolts. Rongyu, the only one in position to try and stop this one. He gets hit by the Whoop. He has to use his beads and a dash on out. The pillars used by Rongyu to keep himself out and find some distance. That's a big ultimate expended. Stinger also used by Venenu.
Yeah, I will say Pantom got the Bumbus Hammer, which is a pretty big power spike looking at his build. He hasn't built damage since that Brawlers, really. The Kadusha Shield does give a little bit. It's a hybrid item. Besides that, has not been able to get more DPS online. The Gilgamesh does get a little bit of power in his first ability, that Scepter, with, you know, this build. But the Bumbus Hammer is a massive power spike. That was a wrap around the bush way of me saying that, you know, Pantom's going to be doing more. And also, 2 wins of Samash in a fight with those cooldown resets could also be pretty helpful for the squad.
Could be so. Fire Giant again teased by the bolts. Rongyu and Yarkor the only ones here right now. Yarkor will make his presence known with Jake. Rongyu now stepping around the corner. But Haddix is fairly tanky on this RDO, able to at least soak up the majority of this damage. But Barracuda not
even
joining
helping.
into the pit. Barracuda is watching this happen and going, are we really going to commit to this one? The answer is no. The Olympus Bolts will back away and Haddix can get some sustained back up.
Yeah, to me, Barra was saying, yeah, you guys can take the fire health, but
That's
like,
actually a lot of healing.
I really don't want to take that damage. Yeah, he's out healing a hell, which is absurd.
That's a lot of healing coming from there. Typically, we don't see too big of numbers on a god like a Terra, just because most of her healing comes from her CC as well. But Jake's making good use of it. Does find some good CC onto Rongyu. But Rongyu's got a pocket healer of his own in Shinto. Get a lot of single target healing back to him.
Yeah, the Cursed Ankh buff has to go to the side of the Leviathans because there's no Cursed Ankh on the left side. The Leviathans have that option. Whenever Jake goes in and pops that ultimate, you're able to counter with that Cursed Ankh, and it usually is going to be enough to dissuade the enemy team, but given the fact that the Bolts are so far ahead, shouldn't be too worried about that. They are going to just go off the Fire Giant and give up on that dream. The new dream is this tier 2 tower and right, as Lasbro's sitting on the sidelines. You still got 20 seconds without wrong use beads, but the Hell's Cleanse is always going to be up, so you got to watch out for that.
And the Trebuchet is working its magic on the left lane, working its magic on the right lane.
They're
So the Bolts
protecting it.
have finally put to use
Stand in
these
front
two
of it.
objectives. Tier 1 in left goes down. Tier 2 in right is now the eye of interest of the Olympus Bolts. And they're just standing in front of it. They're just letting the Trebuchet do the work. Dark Pillars dropped on top of the Trebuchet to try and burn it away. Lasbra versus Panatom is going the way of Lasbra for now as that dropkick gets immuned out by the 1,000 cuts. Trebuchet goes down, double whoop out of Barracuda. Will only find the frontliners in Yarkor. His health bar is melting away. He has to use the dash to jump on out, but the Eagles Riley Lasbra goes back in and up onto the Pal Lao. Who can he pull in? Yarkor is going to get yanked back in, but not enough follow-up damage from the Bolts. It's just the tier 2 tower.
Yeah, the winds of Samash go down, and the tier 2 tower follows suit. Remember that Trebuchet in left is still swinging away at that tower while the Bolts are able to not back up. Actually, they're still looking for some aggression. Zapman gets stunned down and he's gone.
No, Barracuda and Ven's damage just too much. Great CC out of Jake and a great whoop off Barracuda to start that one out. Now the Bolts with a one-man advantage can make their way towards the fire, or maybe just the Pyromancer for now. They've got the damage to do both if they need to, but it'll just be the mini at the moment.
If Jake continues this aggression, he could climb up in these damage shards. He's very close to passing Haddix, and honestly, another fight like that, he could pass Lasbra. So I want to see continued aggression coming out of this Terra. He's always frontlining the fight and finding so many stuns. We can talk over this Fire Giant because nobody, unless Yarkor teleports in, is going to make it to this Fire Giant in time. The Leviathans are on farm duty right now. The Primal Fury could be an option, stealing away a red buff, stealing away a purple buff. all of these things are on the table. They just want as much farm as they can because at the moment, stepping up to that Fire Giant, not your best option.
For the Atlantis Leviathans, they're not going to have to step up for defense around these Phoenixes. And Charlie, I'm looking at the team comp that the Leviathans have for a Phoenix defense, and it doesn't seem like it's the easiest one for them, especially pushing out those minion waves. I mean, where do the Leviathans find some success in their defense?
Yeah, it's going to be hard. They don't have a single good wave clear, whereas Shinto has to step up pretty far to make sure that wave does die. Zapman is not going to step up to auto-attack the wave. That's just going to be not a great option. Staying at the front line and clearing the minions is going to be the name of the game, and I don't think they have an easy way to do that, so you're right to highlight that. It's going to be hard. I think Panatom is probably going to have to follow Lasper around, because if the Bolts are playing like they usually do, sending some tanks into mid lane, sending them into right lane, could split up the Leviathan's push, and I don't think Panatom wins that 1v1 either. Building fairly tanky, once that last item is built, could help out a ton in that fight, but at the moment they are just going to sit back at the Phoenix and turtle as best as they can.
We'll see if that turtle can work for the Leviathans, because they're going to need it. The Olympus Bolts up 10-2, nearly 31 and a half minutes in, with a massive 14K gold lead. The Olympus Bolts have all the momentum they need to start at this Phoenix. It's 4, make that all 5 versus just 3. A couple of Leviathans a little slow to get to this Phoenix, and that could cost them. A whoop from Barracuda gives the Bolts enough time to take the Phoenix. Can they get out, though? Dropkick is good from Panatom, but it's just no follow-up and not enough damage. The Olympus Bolts will stand strong.
Yeah, they do lose Ben's beads, but besides that, and Haddock's beads, so they lose a couple beads, but besides that, get the left side Phoenix and still have all of their ultimates that they need to try and siege a second Phoenix, so they will do that just now. Group up in the mid lane and try once again. Panatom is over here at the speed buff, and Laspra is recognizing that, but the jump away will cancel out that Trickster Spirit, and no more chase will ensue. Haddock's is going to look at this. No, yeah, I was going to say maybe they do a little split here. Laspra's going to go mid, and then the rest of the Bolts are going to look at the right side of the map. No real blink initiator on the side of the Leviathan, so just walking up is your best option.
Well, a whoop onto Wrong You, and Eagles rally to the back line. Veneno is the target for Yarkor, and Panatom tries to target the rest of the team. Valkyrie's discretion from Barra does some decent damage, but all the while mid lane, Lasbra was left alone. The mid Phoenix will fall down.
Yeah, now the right side Phoenix is what's being targeted. Too many ultimates used on that last one. Unless Wrong You has the Dharmic Pillars, Lasbra gets kicked in.
Lasbra does have Palau, though, and he could use that for this fight. Right side Phoenix, half HP, and the Dharmic Pillars drop to hold back 4. Lasbra will only find Wrong You with the pull, but that's not what matters. It's the Phoenix. All 3 of them stripped away by the Bolts.
Yeah, now the Bolts have to get out and back up, but it looks like Jake wants to heal up and stay here. He's calling for his team. Maybe we can go for the end. But given where the ADCs are, they're in top of the mid lane right now. They're not going to go on the right. They're going to wait for some minions to push up. You don't have fire minions just yet. In all of the waves, that right side is going to take a bit to stack up. But 5v5, Siege on the Titan seems to be the game plan here for the Bolts. They're not running away, J-Mac.
No, they've got some fire minion waves pushing up with them. 1 in left, 1 in mid to try and deal with this Titan. Zapman will step out to deal with the left side wave, and Haddox will step up to deal with Zapman. Meanwhile, the rest of the Bolts now moving in from the middle of the lane. The Titan is just dying. Where did the damage come from? Out of the Olympus Bolts, I was expecting a bit more fight back, but the Bolts just kill the Titan and take game 2.
Yeah, I mean, like, I knew they had damage. They had double ADC.
I didn't think it was that fast.
They had Freya and AMC, but
wow,
the Titan's dead.
It is.
I watched it die, and I don't believe it.
No, I don't believe how fast that Titan died.
Do you think the Leviathans also were counting on it to live longer?
I think they were. I think they were hoping they had enough defense themselves to maybe stand in front of a couple of shots and keep it up, but
yeah.
Complete momentum change out of the Olympus Bolts in this game. It was kind of an entire reverse, where last game it was the Leviathans ignoring the solo lane on one side of the map and just running over the Bolts. This time it felt like the Bolts were doing the same thing to the Leviathans.
Yeah, I got to give credit to Jake, because all these massive plays that were coming through usually started with a very solid stun from Jake, the ult being popped, and then saying, let's go. And the whole team was following suit. So Jake, great headliner there, Haddox and himself. The tanks were playing very well, which made the carries look extremely good.
Wouldn't be an interesting set if we didn't take it to game 3, and that's exactly what the Olympus Bolts do here. We'll take it to a break, and we'll come back to the desk to get you started for game 3.
Hey, wait, what did it win?
You win the respect.
You're telling me an alien wore this?
Perfect. Okay.
Okay, that was a good cut.
Messaging him to mute.
The best graphics you really need, Ultra, of course, and I can probably watch a stream on the side.
Content's gonna look good.
Pretty good, pretty good.
of the paper. Don't burn up in the morning, let it taper. Inhale and let it out like reservations. Exhale and breathe, I'm praying for some patience. Proceed, I think I might, I think I'm as a kite. Don't call me for the light, I want a bright night. Don't show 'em like I'm sure, cause they keep it fight.
Game 3 today, in a day where I thought we might get a couple. The Bolts and the Leviathans are going to go the distance after a Game 2 goes the way of the Olympus Bolts. A bit faster paced than Game number 1, but again, a game that just felt in control by one of the two teams, and then some individual picks here and there, some good team fighting by the end of it for the Olympus Bolts gives the tie and Game number 2 over to the Bolts up against the Leviathans. Mifflin, what did you see here from the Bolts that kind of stood out? What do you think makes the difference in this set, this game rather, that pushes the set to 3?
It's almost a complete inverse from the previous game, right? Where the Olympus Bolts just get a stranglehold early on and then from there slowly asphyxiate the Leviathans. Inverse that, you've got Game 1. A very one-sided set so far. I will say that early game presence from the Bolts much higher this time around, a much higher kill game in general as well, whereas the Leviathans, for the most part in Game 1, got their hold through macro play. The Bolts got kills and macro play.
Yep, so a little both.
That's what nets them their lead. I am curious about how that's going to reflect on a Game 3 situation, though. Generally, when both teams have one-sided battles in a one-to-one set that is controlled by early, we'll either see one of two ways in Game 3. Both teams all in on an early composition and just say whoever gets the lead is going to hold it and win the game.
That one.
Or one of these teams is going to really hunker down and try their best to slow down the pace. But knowing the Leviathans and the Bolts, I think we might be leaning towards the former.
That's the first one.
That's right.
Not the ladder.
Exactly.
We climb up ladders, not the...
Between student loans and treehouse homes, we all would take the ladder.
That's right. The Olympus Bolts, Miff, we wondered if the Daji would play into the aggressive setup style of play. We were a bit nervous about some of the counterplay around the Daji. And when all the eyes are focused on countering out the Palau and the ultimate, well, then you've got an AMC that's scaling into the late game. You've got Barracuda, who gets Nimble Rod of Tahuti by the end of this game and is just wailing away on the health bars of the Leviathans. Just a much more clean performance from the Bolts. Similar builds between Lasbra and Ven means physical burst was just so high throughout this matchup. And Panatom really had a brutal game. If you look at the ebbs and flow of the jungle, Lasbra was able to kind of run things, set the pace for his squad. Panatom just could not get anything going on the Gilgamesh. Bottom in the game, even beneath Rongyu. The Ganesh, don't often see that. Though Ganesh has the highest damaging single ability in the game if you hit every tick in a full damage build. But that wasn't the case.
Correct.
Yeah, because we're spreading misinformation. If we keep saying Ganesh has the highest damaging ability in the game.
No, we're just right.
Well, there's an asterisk on it.
I think.
Although it wasn't Tremors. Was it fully channeled Tremors?
Maybe. It's close.
Oh, no, now we're at risk. Unsure, Miff. At any rate. On to Game 3 we go. Lasbra still rocking his prime MVP crown and looked like a prime MVP performance from Laz there in Game 2. I wonder if you're the Leviathans now, you got to go back to banning the Daji.
I think so. The Daji clearly just one of Lasbra's most comfortable picks and one that he can really dominate on. So I would like to see the Leviathans go ahead and target that out yet again. As we get back into P's and B's, we'll get a good look at how these two teams are looking to adjust in Game 3. Daji bans, almost certainly. Maybe even a Freya ban as well. Barracuda, we can't sleep on that performance. Freya's looking good in general, but the weaknesses that she used to have of, hey, our early game's just real bad on Freya. You're just not getting that pressure. Simply not the case. Get your conduit gem. You're getting pressure and then also phenomenal late game scaling.
I mean, still not incredible early, but at least smooths out the...
It's not bad. I'm thinking like you're level 5 and you're in the clear now.
Really?
Yeah, it is
that
not
early?
It is not bad.
Interesting. Okay, so Freya, a bit stronger, a bit earlier. A bit's an understatement, according to Miff. Much stronger, much earlier. Not something the Leviathans have identified in their first two bans, but definite agree on returning to the Daji ban that we saw in the first game. Just too strong for Lasbra. Seems like there are very few misses on that pick and just way too many hits. And the Leviathans just don't want to deal with that going into an all-important Game 3. And remember, even though mentally the Leviathans say we kind of dropped the set against the Dragons, we sort of think of ourselves as a 2-1 squad the way we've played so far. One just got away from us with the Dragons. Unfortunately, the standings show 1 and 2, and if you lose this Game 3, the Leviathans would drop to 1 and 3, and the Bolts would improve to continued undefeated status. They would improve to more undefeated than they were last week, 5-0.
It's a good start.
If they're able to win this. Chernobog ends up being first pick for the Atlantis Leviathans. During the start of the phase, Miff, that would be almost certainly a solo lane pick, but it feels like we've gone back to duo lane Chernobog being his home.
Just has decent pressure, holds his own in lane, great survivability. Chernobog's one of the most frustrating ADCs to have to gank as a jungler. The ability to just like sit on a wall in a shadow. It's essentially an Aegis built in. It also kind of cleanses some of these hard CCs that are delayed, things like the Powwow, but you're not worried about that on Leviathans. You've already dedicated a ban towards it. And then the global presence really is what pushes Chernobog over the edge. How many times have we seen Cyclone Spin or all these other Chernobog players in a late game team fight around Fire Giant just go to the opposite side of the map and take out a tier 1, a tier 2, and even potentially force a back to defend Phoenix and then teleport into the team fight proper and turn it around there. It's that versatility and how you're allowed to play the map state that Chernobog brings to your team that is his main strength.
Well, Ardio's got a 100% win rate through 5 games. Almost the opposite of what Terrace got, 33% win rate through 6. So a couple of wins throughout the 6 games that we've seen Terra. Still a strong look for the Bolts and Awesome Jake, respectively. So not showing too much of the Bolts in their first couple. You get good initiation, good tankiness, also double sustain in some cases. So that's something that the Leviathans need to look for, I think, moving forward in this draft. Can you apply anti-heal?
Pity for you, I am not a goddess of
Suppose
mercy.
you can, but you can also apply a lot of damage, and that's what the Leviathans have drafted in their first 3.
Yeah, I like the top 3 from the Leviathans. Decent scaling, phenomenal scaling to be sure. Nemesis should help out against this pretty incredibly strong front line from the Olympus Bolts, but Ardio and Terra together is just so hard to deal with. Both of these gods work in synergy, but also just Ardio on her own being essentially undefeated so far, and Haddix having the performances that he has had on it is a scary thought for the Leviathans to have to deal with. But Nemesis should alleviate some of that pressure. We saw some early rotations from Ardio. You're generally starting the fight with your dash. If Nemesis can connect with that ultimate, you've got the shred potential between Chernobog and Freya. So certainly you're going to have to pick your fights a little bit more choosily, I suppose, if you're Haddix.
Whoa, that's
but,
not a word.
You look, man, diction is always ephemeral and changing throughout time. If I say it enough and it catches on, it becomes a word. So I'm going to go ahead and
There's a book about that. Did you ever read
the dictionary?
No, there's a book about people who just, what was that? It was a book that I read in elementary school about kids who used a word for pen so much that it eventually became a word in the dictionary. I swear this is a book.
Well, I know that literally does not mean literally anymore, according to like Merriam-Webster.
Yeah, that's horrible. People literally use the word literally for anything.
That's right. That's right.
Fenrir, that's another good pick for Lasbra. Got taken away, remember, by the Leviathans and left open this time. 7-2 and 8. Again, reminder, the last time Lasbra played this pick up against the Olympus Bolts in the 2 games, or the game 2 win, rather, over the Oni Warriors to finish off that set. Bolts banning away a couple unique support picks between the Ymir and the Nox, and on the flip side, the Leviathans taking some burst ADCs off the table between the AMC and the Scotty. So the Bolts are leaving both of their carries open to the end of the draft here. Wonder if you get something for Bera, maybe snag a different mid for Venenu. Plenty of options for the Bolts.
I am not in love with this Fenrir selection. It feels strange to go towards Fenrir, specifically into Freya, who's got the ability to deal with Brutalize multiple ways. Towards the mid game, you're just going to out DPS him. If Fenrir brutalizes, you're like, oh, thank God, I don't have to aim my auto attacks anymore. In the early game, Banish, a very good tool. Valkyrie's Discretion deals with Brutalize. You've got decent CC immunity options. Already not looking at the most consistent beads burners from the Olympus Bolts, so with ESET, a little bit more consistent now. But this Fenrir, I think, has got to be the question mark for the Olympus Bolts. Should at least be able to find some sort of rotations towards Chernobog, who is likely playing in mid. You can force that out pretty consistently, but yeah, I am curious, man. Just not one I was expecting to see.
By the way, it's called Frindle.
What is?
The book I was talking about is called Frindle.
My blood runs cold.
And what?
Nick learns that individuals get to determine what words mean, and when he comes across a gold-colored pen in the street, he decides to give the pen a new name, Frindle. His classmates really like the idea, and soon every child in 5th grade is using the word Frindle, and eventually, like, that becomes the word for pen, something like that.
That is literally how language works.
So yes, I don't mean to totally disrupt your analysis, because it was actually pretty on point, but
Hey, thanks.
Production helped me out there. Leviathans finish off their draft with some good initiation. Also, Course feeling pretty strong for this Leviathan squad. And Sobek not a pick that we often get to see, but we'll see it likely out of the solo lane.
This is a late game draft from the Leviathans.
Feels that way, huh?
It does. I mean,
gonna be super tanky and super damagey.
Standard initiation. Your objective burn's incredibly high thanks to Chorus, as you said, from Fafnir. Sobek's got really good peel potential, so you can almost play hot potato with the role of initiator on the side of the Leviathans.
That's what
Either
Shinto's
Fafnir
doing
can
right
start it up, or Sobek can do it
Playing hot
himself.
potato.
The dive of the bolts, comprised of Terra, Artio, Fenrir, might struggle against all the CC on the side of the Leviathans. Freya's got decent self-peel. Fafnir deals with the Brutalize. Sobek does the exact same thing. So I had said similar things about the previous game where I thought the bolts might struggle in their initiation. But now looking at the whole draft for the Olympus bolts, I think very clearly you got to have a discussion about objective DPS and objective burn. And they've got decent DPS and secure certainly on their side. But looking at this Leviathan's composition, if this makes it to an even state 30 minutes into the game, it just feels like the Leviathans are going to outscale similarly to what we saw from the bolts, where Barracuda is just able to tear through the back line without having to concern himself with any of the damage in return. This could be a similar situation, but the bolts do have the ability, especially around this Fenrir, to just barrel through the early game.
Yeah, I guess it really does depend on if the Ragnaroks are hitting. Are the Ragnaroks burning the beads? Is Lasbra able to get active? Again, it's another pick in the Fenrir, where in the past Lasbra has been so successful, and teams have had to take it away. The Leviathans even earlier on in this set throw a ban towards the Fenrir. And so I think lots to look forward to in the jungle for the Olympus bolts out of this game. Of course, they're going to be pace setters. On the flip side, you look at the Nemesis, nothing to scoff at early on here, Miff. Even though you're maybe aiming to get this game going a bit later if you're the Leviathans, do you think Nem has the ability to compete with Fenrir in the early stages of the game?
In 1v1, you're favoring Fenrir, right? Yeah. Nemesis doesn't have CC immunity built into the kit, and if you really want to get active, that means you're probably going towards Blink in that first slot, which would just leave a massive target on your back, Ragnarok onto Nemesis, drag him into an E set, have Circle Protection drop on her feet. Pretty easy to find the kill immediately there. So Lasbra being the question mark, having a decent matchup up against Panatom on this Nemesis, I think gives him a pretty clear target throughout this game.
Yep.
And just having someone that you can continually focus out, someone you can continually put your pressure onto, simplifies the game plan for Lasbra, which should help out the entirety of the Olympus bolts from that point.
Yeah, again, the Leviathans draft looks terrifying as the game goes on. So much shred. Still got the Jingwei, still have some opportunities for the bolts should this game go long. Can the Olympus bolts remain undefeated? Will the Leviathans grab themselves their second win of the phase? All that and more answered in game number 3.
Thank you so much. A pivotal game number 3 and an important one for both of these teams. The Olympus bolts want to maintain their undefeated record to start this phase out. The Atlantis Leviathans need to find their second set win. They're currently sitting 6th seed, which is not a position that probably anybody thought that the Atlantis Leviathans would be in after being the World Championship, trying to reprise some of that Season 8 glory back to their name. It's J-Mac, Charlie, and Doug. One final time today with the Leviathans and the Bolts going back at it. And the desk, and I think Mifflin brings up a lot of good points about this Leviathans comp scaling towards that late game. So, Charlie, do you maybe echo some of those concerns that the Bolts need to get active early?
I'm just mad I'm seeing the solo back, man. One of the...
You're upset about the solo back.
If you want to talk about, like, historically the most boring lanes in Smite history, solo back has to be in the conversation.
Not Xingqian Bologna?
It's just, I mean, Bologna at least wants to brawl. Solo back wants to click 3, click 2, back up. And then you ult for your mana back if your blue's getting invaded. That's the end of that matchup. So... I do find some issues, and I will say I'm extremely happy that Barracuda maybe didn't take my advice, but just took the advice of, at some point had to decide the Ichival Jingwei build is just too much of playing for late game. You just need some crit online earlier, so it doesn't look like he's going that start. Actually picked up the Gilded and the Dev Gauntlets. Hopefully we see a Wind Demon just right after that, trying to match some of the presence from this Freya.
Even Zapman going for Gilded Arrow. We've been seeing a lot more of the Conduit Gem Freya pop up as of recent. I think Stewart was one of the first players in the SPL to bring that one over. But Zapman going to go to the Gilded of his own, starting with the Ring, so going to lose out on a little bit of that clear power that Conduit offered to him but going to be able to get a little bit of that extra attack damage just in general, as well as a little bit of extra gold spooling.
Yeah, my problem with the Ichival build has always been, if you're up against a magical ADC like Freya, the benefit of being a physical like auto attacker is that you can build crit, which Freya just simply can't get. You know, you can't match that RNG, you can't match the amount of damage she has, but if you go the Ichival, usually you get torn apart. Right now, Zapman could be in some trouble.
2v2. The slow autos are good from Jake to keep Zapman at bay, but the hammer will stun one and slow the other. Zapman can get by, thanks some good body blocks by Wrong Yu. A good wall almost puts Zapman down with some follow from Barracuda, but not quite enough damage.
Yeah, there's a lot of auto attacks flying, a very aggressive dual lane for both sides. And I'm not talking about the picks. It has nothing to do with the picks. Both just want to play extremely aggressive. Awesome Jake obviously just W keying, just trying to wall off those auto attacks to stop some of the clear. And Wrong Yu's like, I can't fight the minions, but I can fight Barracuda. He's just got a squirt gun right now, whereas Wrong Yu's got a hammer, so he's just trying to be as aggressive as possible in this lane as well.
Zapman knocked up by the Jingwei. Barracuda dashes in. The wall's going to be beads away by Zapman. That's a massive relic down for him, but maybe Jake needs a little bit more help. Pops the sprint to find his path on out. The Leviathans and Zapman just taking a ton of extra damage right back in return.
I don't want to pan away from this lane. I just want to see what's going to happen
just
next.
Stay here forever.
Yeah, every single time the minions meet, we're seeing more and more aggression. The beads get popped from Zapman. Awesome Jake's a little bit too weak to try and aggress, and the purple buffs have spawned in. It looks like both will just go for their own buffs, so no more aggression in the lane for now, as both of the junglers are making their way over. Not really to purple buff, not really to duo lane, to red buff specifically, because, you know, I think Shinto could probably do it himself. You know, like the Chernobog could auto attack the red buff down, but if Ben tried to kill that red buff by himself, he'd be here until like 4 minutes.
Well, luckily for Venena, who does have some help from Lazarus to clear out the red on his side, also elected to not go for a starter. Instead, it was the Book Rush right away and got Book of Thoth online and stacking barely even over 3 minutes into the game. So he'll be able to have that one early. Panatom wraps around, finds an ult onto Awesome Jake, who uses one wall to crash through, use the other one to live up a monolith and lock down Panatom. Awesome Jake makes it out.
Spam taunting them, man. He's just saying, you guys can't kill my support. Even though you could tell they had no idea that Panatom was even there. They just looked back and were like, oh, well, okay, now we got booped. We're going to have to use the ult, and Panatom wasted that gank. It was still an opportunity to give them some pressure in lane, so certainly not a waste. And now Barracuda is going to step up to this lane and try to hit level 5. Jingwei gets a lot safer, and Freya also gets a lot safer once access to that ultimate ability, but never mind. Leviathans don't care about hitting level 5. They want to zone Barracuda off this wave. They want to make sure Jingwei doesn't get access to that airstrike, and they're just going to stand there like bullies.
Yep. Barracuda going to have to wait for his support to come by so he can even step up to the wave. We saw this in game 1, where there was a little bit of lane freezing, though it's definitely much further down the lane in that regard. Barracuda will get hit by the banish from Zapman. Now that Jake has shown up, Zapman will have to back away a little bit. Does get hit by the root. And the knockup immuned out by the Valkyrie's discretion. Zapman now has no defensive tools to his name for the next 40 seconds.
Yeah, now he's going to have to sit a little bit far back in lane. I expect to see Jake hang around here. Maybe even some aggression from Lazarus. The beads and the ults are going to be down for 30 seconds total. That could be a sign that this level 6 Fenrir needs to get active. But Zapman probably recognizes that too, and will stay as far away from the opening of the jungle as possible, and at least when there's no wards down, get some vision and make sure you got eyes on that Fenrir. Since he's in mid right now and going to the right side of the map, it seems like the Leviathans are telling him, you're free to clear that wave. You're free to push up as much as possible because you're in no fire just yet.
Greater Scorpion will be invaded by the Olympus bolts, and that will at least allow the bolts to get some pressure across the map. So there hasn't been a first blood just yet. Level 5s and 6s. Everybody standing by. Jake does get hit by the hammer, uses the wall to break his way on out. We'll have that second dash available to him because of it. But again, another ultimate by Panatom used on the support and comes up fruitless for now. Haddix will stun out Yarkor, but it's just to create a zone for the Olympus Bolts to work on their Scorpion. Yarkor really wants to take that Scorpion, but he will not do so.
It's so interesting how the solo meta has just evolved where, I don't know, 2-3 weeks ago we were playing Hunters, then it was the Bumba's Hammer, and now it's Conduit Gem, Genji's Guard, Ardio, and Sobek. That's the matchup we get to watch this time around. Teleport for one and Beads for the other, so at least Yarkor gets a little bit of extra movement in that regard, whereas Haddix is forced into just being a little bit safer when you're up against this much CC and the solo back. You got to make sure you're holding on to those beats.
What would be the most boring solo match in general? I already know that you're saying solo back there, but
Geb, Sobek.
Oh god, yeah. Now that you say it, I absolutely hate it. Barracuda hates the damage that Zapman is doing. Half HP on the Jing Wei just from the banish and the follow-up damage afterwards. Olympus Bolt's Hunter will have to back as well. If I'm not mistaken, I believe this is now Barracuda's 111th game. The nice 1-1-1 on Jing Wei. So that's always a nice little stat for him to have.
Yeah, that could be some good luck. 3 1s means some extra crit RNG. I don't know. I couldn't tell you, but has the Dev Gauntlets online, so shouldn't be getting any crits just yet. Once the Wind Demon is finished and the Explosive Bolts get some points put into it, maybe then we'll see some of that. As we also see Awesome Jake reprising his Chronos, but look at how many Gilded
Yeah, I was about to say,
procs.
holy Gilded procs, right? 4 of them sitting there.
Yeah, Zapman stacked up a ton of
He's going to get a whole wave.
He's got a lot of gold just sitting there. Oh my gosh.
Good lord. My man has like an entire wave's worth of them. Ultimate by Jake will once again get another Valkyrie's Discretion from Zapman, who will crash back down and now claim some of those Gilded procs he'd been sitting on for a while. And a nice little influx of gold. But, I mean, that's what happened in game number 1. Zapman had a massive wave just continuing to stack up to his side eventually. Well, now we have a case where there's like 3 waves worth over there. Jumping by Lasbra, Zapman, beads are not going to save you. Ult is not there to save you. It's the first blood for the Olympus Bolt. Shinto crashes in, but no further fight for the Bolts for now. Unless Lasbra has the mana to get a jump out there, but will not do so.
Yeah, the Leviathans do get credit for the purple buff at least, as Lasbra gets credit for the kill. And it looks like Awesome Drake is not done yet. He wants to steal away these offerings and make sure that his team gets the first Trebuchet. And that's going to go, it depends on how you want to use it. But, well, that's a very early on upgraded Ankh from Wrong
Yeah, I'm glad you caught it with me.
Yeah, that's going to be difficult for Awesome Drake and Ben to make use of their healing, but also... And even if Haddix rotates over, that's, early on, you'd say it is early, right? Because usually like level 12, after the second item gets built, that's when these relics get forced. But Leviathans are playing because they want to get these ADCs online. They don't want to give any sort of avenue for the Olympus Bolts to run away with this game. Just chopping down some of that healing seems to be the way Wrong Yu wants to shut some of that down.
Do you see Wrong Yu is eyeing around the mid lane, finds a hammer onto Jake. Jake's got the monolith to keep himself up. And he will clear out the red buff for the time being. The solo lane going to be probably quiet for a while. There is a Trebuchet on the Bolt side of the solo lane, but until we start seeing rotations through and no teleport from Haddix means that Yarkor could start to make some early rotations out, and Haddix would just have to, waltz his way to any of those lanes. So I imagine with that teleport, Leviathans should want to get active a little bit earlier.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. Yarkor's going to rotate in and be an absolute menace to Ven. Like, the East set does not love that. But just in lane, RDO versus Sobek, I don't see the sparks flying. I don't see any immediate kill opportunities. Even with, like, lurking in the waters down, pluck down, if Haddix didn't have beads, like, unless the junglers make some presence down, I don't think. This is pretty much this is par for the course. Yarkor is jumping as he gets that, and they're gonna repeat that 30 times until level 20, and then that'll be the end of it, hopefully.
God, maybe I'm glad that we don't have Geb solo right now, because that lane would be absolutely nothing. No, what it would be is that Geb would try and roll through the wave to get his damage. He'd get plucked by the Sobek and go, oh, well, I guess I'll just shockwave instead, and then that's pretty much the end of that. So for now, Yarkor and Haddix will have their own little party in the solo lane, trading damage between each other, clearing out waves, while the rest of the action across the map is a little bit more sparks flying. Wrong use, slowed down by Haddix, who's made a rotation over towards mid. Good body blocks will keep him at bay for now. Silence. And a Spirit Ball after by Veneno, but Wrong Yu has that Draconic Transformation. We'll go into it, stun immediately after, into a Zero Protection. Not enough damage to take out Wrong Yu, but what about the follow-up damage after Panatom eats some of the damage at least out of Lasbra? We'll get the beads away from the Nemesis, and Panatom is out, and so is Veneno.
Yeah, but Yarkor goes to the back and tries to kill Ven. Lasbra taken down.
Shinto still alive throughout the Spirit Ball, just a little too far away, not going to be able to take him out. Barracuda cannot find the last shot to grab him out. Meanwhile, Haddix still in the backline, finds a triple stun, but the Valkyrie's Discretion is enough out of Zapman to get another kill.
Yeah, the trades coming through. Haddix and Lasbra are dead. For Panatom, Shinto makes it out. And now the Leviathans have an opportunity to go for a possible Pyromancer. Given the fact that they all backed, not going to be the case, and they will just retreat and spend a little bit up of that gold. Just a crazy fight there. I thought that Barracuda getting to that fight would have been the end of it, but Zapman makes the rotation all the way over does have a little bit of movement speed to make sure to help out his squad. If that's me and I'm a Freya over in duo lane and I see a Jingwei made the rotation, I say, good luck, guys. I'm pushing the wave. But Zatman definitely needed to be there to clean up that kill on Haddix. A good wall by Jake almost got him out.
Yeah, and even better, a triple stun by Haddix to try and get that disengage. Almost thought he had made it out of there, but as you highlight, with Zatman's rotation through and a nicely placed ult, will make it a 2-for-1 trade for the Atlantis Leviathans to even this game back up. The Bolts were starting to climb away with it, but now that gold has evened itself out. The experience relatively close, still slightly favoring the Leviathans, about 1,000 up, but even at 11, 12 minutes in, 1,000 XP is not really all that much.
Yeah, it's not going to be the biggest deal. What you want to look at is those the gods that have hit level 12 and they get access to a second relic. Lasbra actually is pulling this Pyromancer. Yarkor has a ton of burst damage here, but Circle of Protection not going to get out confirmed as Yarkor is looking for the kill after the fact to pluck in Lasbra and do a ton of damage. This is what I was talking about. Doesn't really do much damage to the tanks, but Yarkor still has a ton for these carries that don't have much protections build, and Lasbra has actually 0 magical protections build.
Yeah, the Conduit Gem at least giving Yarkor a little bit of fight back up against some of these squishier gods. That Trebuchet in the right lane being pushed up by the Olympus Bolt. Should get some pressure on that tier 1 tower at the very least. Might not be able to take it out if Yarkor stands by long enough. Or maybe if at least Yarkor can kill some of these minions that are standing under it. For now, not too much should be going. Actually, I don't think I've ever seen the Trebuchet turn itself like that. That was, I'm gonna be honest, that was a little creepy.
Where's it going?
What is it doing? It is freaking me out. I'm gonna be honest, like watching like one of those horror movies in the like Jigsaw turns his head or something like that. But Trebuchet turns its sides back over to the tower while Shinto rotates over to push Haddix. That just creeped me out, man. I'm not gonna lie.
No, I get you. The Trebuchet like has eyes in the back of its head. I mean, it has a targeter obviously, so the minions it wanted was behind it, so it did the 180. It was just, you know how much work it would take to turn a Trebuchet 180 degrees?
Yeah, especially because it doesn't actually have like the full rotating wheels. It's just got normal wheels.
Yeah, silly normal wheels.
And it's on like brick flooring too. That can't be easy.
I mean, it's just 2 dudes. Like, just 2 minions are the ones who have to push it around, and that's my biggest concern. As the Gold Fury could be getting looked at here. Zatman made a little bit of a rotation over, and given the fact that the solo laners aren't showing face, I don't think the Gold Fury will be the option. Maybe just a little bit of poke thrown their way for those mid camps, and then back because red buffs are spawning in. Ven gets his, and the Leviathans have a little bit of time before Shinto is able to pick up that one.
We do see very slight XP lead, that 1,000 from earlier, mostly just favoring Shinto in that mid lane. Has his Transcendence, has his Atlantis bow picked up. So has a fair bit of damage and some decent attack speed built up for his name once he gets into these fights. And we've seen just in that last team fight how much Shinto was able to do for his team and how much he was able to stay alive as well. If you look on the opposite side, Veneno is once again gone for this Polynomicon. This has become a very popular item for Veneno.
Yeah, like Paul's been building the east side with Poly, but it's more like a last item pickup, whereas Ven has been playing that Cuckoo and going for the Poly second item. Now, on east side, he's just saying, hey, free stun into a Poly shot. If you're Aegising a big burst damage, if you're expecting more to come, you're usually not Aegising that Poly shot.
Zatman finds the banish. Lasbra finds 2 on the jump, and the Ragnarok to get out because the ultimate from this Freya is doing too much damage. Panatom trying to chase him out, finds the blink, and Rongyu finds Awesome Jake on the back end of the fight. Now all 5 Leviathans on the left side of the map, and only 3 of the Bolts healthy enough to try and step up to this, but they will not do so. Yarkor gatekeeping the Gold Fury for the Leviathans to take.
Yeah, the fear of the pluck was enough to say, hey, we should go in, even 4v5, even for a chance to steal this objective. The pluck in would just be too disastrous. And Haddix does have the cripple field, so it could have just put it down, but the steal opportunity for an RDO without blink is just not there. So the level 14 Haddix has still not decided what he wants for that second relic. Is going to have to back off as the rest of the Bolts do. But the Leviathans aren't done here. Panatom is sitting around waiting to see if Barracuda will push up, maybe some action underneath that tier 1 tower. But the whoop goes down, and away goes the rest of the Leviathans. Their gold is looking solid now, about 2,000 almost, more like 1,500 in favor of the Leviathans. It's close to 2K, and they're still looking to get active as much as possible. Lasper almost died there as well. He was chased pretty far down by Panatom and used the blink. Has a level lead in jungle, actually. I'm surprised that Lasper was able to find that, given the fact that the Leviathans have been farming so well.
Now, he did get a bit of a soft timer by the desk. 30 minutes is kind of the point where the Leviathans want to get to even or ahead. So far, they are ahead and want to at least continue that trend that way because that's when the just raw damage output that Shinto and Zatman will have could exceed that of the defenses that Jake and Haddix are able to build up. Obviously, the carry's not going to have much to it. So the team fight stage for the Leviathans is once that 30 minutes hits, but just in these first couple of skirmishes, the Leviathans have been the one coming out on top of the fights.
Yeah, once Barracuda finishes that item he just bought, I think they get a big boon in power, right? The Wind Demon is going to help out a ton. 3 greater shells being purchased, or I guess they're free, so just being grabbed by the Olympus bolts. You want to make sure you're blocking those auto attacks and helping out your squad, and if you have 3 of them, actually 4 of them now, that awesome Jake picked one up, so all these auto attackers we're talking about in Phantom, Shinto, and Zap, they're going to have to go through a few different health bars to try and make sure their auto attack damage is going through.
Pretty sure there's enough shells to actually make 1 full health bar, just about.
I would say so.
I mean, with 4 of them, all of them very likely going to be going over to Fortifying Shell. I don't see any reason that Phantom Shell would need to be picked up. So, wow, that's a lot of extra HP, a lot of extra shields that the Leviathans had to chew through. They've got the damage to do it. Can they maintain the pacing? Pyromancer goes to the Olympus Bolts. Good zoning out of Haddix to keep Rong Yu out of the pit, and really only much of a steal opportunity for a hammer unless it gets body blocked. So Olympus Bolts find a little bit of gold to keep themselves back in this game.
But Shinto and Zapman have done the patented roll swap as the Chernobog is looking for that tier 1 tower. If that was a Freya, could be in some trouble. Shinto can just fly away whenever need be. Of course, you can't fly wherever you want. You got to fly to an enemy, but I think just flying to Haddix and dashing into the wall would be a pretty safe bet. The RDO is not doing too much damage to a level 17 Chernobog at this point in the game. And possibly a red buff invade, and I say possibly, but it's already gone. Looks like no one's even going to pick it up because Rongyu still has green buff for a little bit longer.
Nah, hell wait it.
Yeah, after the Pyromancer, he actually got it, so we're going to see some big damage coming from this.
Big damage from the FAF, baby.
We talked about it last time, and now the actual, to be fair, the chain sense haven't come through. Rongyu's got a kill on the FAF here, so that red buff could actually be impactful as this game goes on.
We do have the Chronos Pendant into what I imagine will be a Lotus Crown now picked up by Awesome Jake in that 3rd slot. So foregoing a little bit of his extra full defense is going for something a little bit more hybrid in that slot and something to benefit his team when those heals do manage to go off. Because as highlighted by the fact that now a Brawler's Beat Stick has been picked up, the Curse Stonk earlier on, a lot of that healing going to be mitigated, so instead maybe try and get some extra protections to go the way once those heals go through.
Yeah, I don't envy anyone that's going to have to try and kill Yarkor with the Breastplate into the Witchblade into what I can only assume is going to be the Spectral Armor. So yeah, the Croc is going to be quite unkillable until later stages of the game when a Silver Branch and a Deathbringer and more CC is coming through, but the Bolts still have a fair bit of burst damage in their own right with Ven on this E set. And the Circle of Protection, if you're able to CC someone in it for its entirety, which rarely gets used that way, I will say. More often than not, it's used as the Fire Giant Confirm, and sometimes you insta-pop it for some damage. It's very rare that you see a fully charged Circle of Protection landing on one of the tanks, but if you do, it does do a ton of damage. Just something to look out for.
Yeah, no, it definitely can hit really hard, even with your protections built up. A lot of mixed protections more than anything scattered between the Leviathan's tanks. A lot of physical for the side of Yarkor as he does finish up that Spectral Armor. So 3 full Phys defense items now picked up for the Croc and starting to get his ward coverage around the Fire Giant. We're almost 20 minutes into the game now. We haven't really seen any eyes on the Fire. It's only been on that Gold and that Pyromancer. With Zapman on the left side of the map. Might be a little bit before we see the Leviathans posture that way. But Oni Fury coming up here in just a few seconds. The Olympus Bolts are the ones who had the vision control around the pit.
You mind if I reuse a joke from earlier today?
Oh God, what are you gonna hit me with?
Well, when Yarkor's on the Croc, I'm buying the stock.
Ah, okay. Going back from the Trix tank from earlier on. Oni Fury started, shredded, and then immediately leashed away. Now, to be fair, that one for okay, well, hold on, never mind. We won't even go back to that just yet. Oni Fury picked back up by the Bolts. Haddix picked up by Zapman, and his health bar melting. The Olympus Bolts get the Oni Fury, but Zapman finds Haddix. Valkyrie's Discretion to slam damage into Veneno, who will go down. Panatom with the Slice and Dice finds the second.
Yeah, that was a ton of burst damage coming out of Yarkor. Fully charged Lurking in the Waters is going to do a ton to every mage, and you don't have an Aegis, you just got the Shell. And look at this immediate back. They're not backing for a particular purpose. They're going towards that Fire Giant. They still have that Draconic Transformation. It will run out, unfortunately, but they're looking for that FG. They lost that Gold Fury there because of the fact that Eastheadis has instant confirmation. Ven's dead for 26 seconds. Haddix is dead for 20. No teleport available. They're going to try to go for this Fire Giant.
Yarkor will play zone duty. Only level 17 on the Croc, but still able to disrupt Lasbra enough. Can he distract both Laz and Barracuda? The Fire Giant now started up by the Leviathans. All 5 here, and it's only 3 bolts. Can any of the bolts get into the pit safely enough to try and steal it away, to find a way out? Lasbra is on the back side of the pit. The Fire Giant down to 50% health. Jake down to 30 of his own. Fire Giant still there. Lasbra's got one chance to steal this away, and he will do so. He'll walk out with his life. Barracuda might not be so fortunate. Tail of the fight gets plucked back into the clutches of the Leviathans.
Yeah, now Zapman's gonna have to win this 1v1 because he stayed on it, and he...
Oh, the whoop! The whoop is good! Zapman, and then the Aegis from Lasbra. Lasbra just needs literally one hit to take him down, but no! Shinto comes in just in time! Zapman lives! But the Olympus bolts, at the end of the day, they still keep the fire away from the Leviathans.
Yeah, Ven and Haddix, for dying after that Gold Fury fight, you know what your reward is? You get to hold on to that Fire Giant buff. They get it. I mean, Zap was the only one who stayed on. Everyone else was like, hey, let's go for the fight. Zap's like, nah, guys, I got this. Forgot that there could have been a Fenrir behind the Fire Giant. Zap jumps in. Beautifully timed banish, though, to make sure that Brutalize stops in its tracks and wins that. I'm not going to say wins the 1v1 because the rest of the team came in. I'm pretty sure Lasbra would have eventually killed him if they didn't show up. But the rest of the Leviathans make sure that Zapman does not fall, despite the fact that they lost that FG. Considering the gold lead, the Bolts are in a pretty decent spot here. I mean, they got FG on 2. They can stall this game out for, you know, another 5 minutes or so until Fire Giant spawns back in. Now about 4 minutes. And they're allowed to get some extra gold, so not going to be the worst thing in the world for them. The one issue I'm seeing is the power spikes that the Leviathans are hitting. That's a rod up to Hootie Freya. We're seeing Shinto go through, and he's about to be level 20. He is level 20, so it's going to be rough.
We do have the Leviathans at least able to clear out some of this jungle and maybe try and regain some of that momentum that the Bolts had put a stop to, at the very least. Zapman going to make his way back. Now level 20, can upgrade that Gilded Arrow if he so chooses, as long as he has the gold to do so. And with Jake and Barra standing around, trying to pick up some of those offerings. Another Trebuchet could, again, delay the game. Zapman uses the ultimate because now he's got 3 members of the Bolts in his lane. He's got some backup with Wrong U, but is that backup enough? No Aegis, now he's got a 3rd one. As Shinto crashes his way back in. Panatom shows up, and all the Leviathans are here to bail out Zapman. They're not going to let him be the sacrificial lamb this time. The beads pulled away from Venenu, and Yarkor in the lurking in the waters to chase them out.
Ben's going to have to drop the ult here, and he's going to have to do it defensively. Does get plucked back in, and he's deleted. Panatom getting credit for that one. The chase is going to continue, J-Mac.
Oh no, the root is good from Shinto. Not quite enough. Jake able to dash his way out, and 4 of the Bolts still alive through the end of it all. Venenu got a massive heal back to himself, but it immediately got turned away. The crits coming out of Shinto and the pulse damage from Zapman too much.
Yeah, Lasbra thought about wrapping around there and seeing if he could get aggressive, and thought better of it, decided to just go for the red buff and back off. The Levi's, despite losing that Fire Giant, are not afraid to get aggressive up against the Bolts. Again, only Haddix has the buff now. Van had it for a bit. They did put a lot into trying to chase that man down, but one of the benefits of Chernobog is no matter where you are, you know, you just give him a call and he'll be there. And Shinto showed up, Rongyu also showed up, and surprise, Yarkor showed up to make sure that the Freya did not get targeted down, and Zap was able to live to see another day. It looks like the Bolts are sort of grouping up here in the jungle as much as possible, just in case anyone steps up, but Ven won't have beads for quite some time. 3 out of 4 of those shells are down. I don't imagine it'd be a good look for the Bolts to look for a fight here. They should just take their small win, again, in stalling out this game in the Fire Giant, and maybe just grouping up for next one.
You're looking at the player damage charts right now. Shinto and Zapman topping it. The next closest below them is Barracuda, almost 3,000 damage behind at this point. For now, the Leviathans, their composition wasn't the best early on. It wasn't by any means a bad comp in the early game, but we're now starting to approach that 25, getting closer to 30-minute mark. And that's where Leviathan's comp is supposed to scale even harder than it already has. And the fact that there's still items to be purchased for the Leviathans means that it's only going to get harder for the Bolts to confirm those kills. I mean, they invested 3 people to try and kill Zapman, and he was able to weave himself around long enough to stick out. Powerful Fury started by Leviathans. That one will go to them with no contest.
Yeah, what I'm seeing here is a lot of presence put on to Zapman, which I think is smart because Freya is, you know, hyper carry in this instance. It has enough damage online to just rip through your whole team. So a lot of focus put on to Zap, but he usually doesn't die, and he's usually able to trade back a ton of damage before he gets to that low point of HP, and that's where the issue arises. These tanks are tanky. Awesome Jake has a fair bit of protection, and Haddix is pretty unkillable in a 1v1 setting. But once you really start getting your prot shred down, Panatom chooses a good target to ult and shred those protections. And then Leviathans have such a good answer back. So the Bolts need to get a clean pick and get out. And Leviathans, they just got to keep doing what they're doing because so far it's been working.
Yeah, Venenu goes back to base, waiting for a couple more gold to upgrade his starter items. So he'll have a little bit more CDR into his build. So a few more Spirit Balls to fly during the fight, a couple more Wind Gusts and Silences as well. But the Leviathans have the advantage around the Fire Giant for now. Vision on their side of the pit and even inside of the pit itself. And they've got time to wait here. They have time to buy because the Olympus Bolts are the ones who need to make the offensive play to stop this one.
Okay, now that we have some time, when Yarkor's on the Croc,
right,
I'm buying the stock, right?
Yeah.
Because the Leviathans look good. Like
Right.
that's if you weren't here.
Yeah, if you weren't here for the SCC. So that all started because we were talking about Trix Tank and the gods he's been playing. And he's got like an 80-something% win rate on that god with like 60+ games played, which is unreal. So whenever Trix Tank was on the Croc, you're definitely invested in that stock. But now, in this game, Yarkor on it at 0-0 and 8.
And you know what's worse?
What's that?
He's on the Shark skin, so he's not even a Croc.
It's true, he's not a Croc. When Yark...
No, Yark the Shark. That's so much easier. Why didn't I just go with that?
It's true. It is Yark the Shark in its literal form at this point. Yarkor going to just push the bolts back. Shinto split pushing on the left side. Can fly into this fight at any given moment. Zapman up in the sky. Ultimate already burned through this fight. He won't get the damage that he was hoping for. But Haddix and the rest of the team, now Shinto's showing up. Big circle protection will get some good damage. But the wall is blocking off so many different people. Yarkor is stuck behind him. But Panatom finds his way to the backline. Venenu, the first one gone. Barracuda has found his way out. But Shinto grabs Awesome Jake. Haddix so tanky in the backline, so tanky in the middle of 4 people, and will finally find his way down to the grave, and it's Zapman to put him there.
Yeah, and it looks like Lazarus in the backline trying to see if he could go for a cheeky steal. The Leviathans, they don't care about the objective anymore. They're going for the tier 2 tower. They've got the Trebuchet, and they're going to run it down mid and try and get this. Where's Barracuda going? He's just pushing right lane?
He might want to go back because there are 5 strong in the Leviathans, plus a Trebuchet pushing up mid, and it's only Lazarus to defend. Barracuda has finally made his way back, but it's 5 strong in the Leviathans. Only Baron Lazarus to defend. 3-man stun out of Laz is a good start to the fight, but is it enough of a fight? The Trebuchet is here to help out, and there's not much more that the Olympus Bolts can do. Lazarus finds another triple stun. That's big, but not big enough. Panatom takes him down. Barracuda goes down, and the Atlantis Leviathans will cut off the undefeated streak of the Bolts right here.
Wow, 5-1 from Panatom. Shinto having a lights-out performance. Zapman just looked, even so much presence put to this fray. I know I highlighted that before, but still, he was the target of that fight. They tried to get aggressive as they could. They just could not seem to find the picks onto this fray. I could not stop that constant DPS, and after the fact, the tanks of the Leviathans you got to give credit to. I mean, Yarkor was being so annoying on the Sobek, right? At the beginning of the fight, you have to watch out for the pluck. You have to watch out for being CC'd. And then Rongyu just able to just CC for his team so well. Zap dies there so many times if the tanks aren't playing the way they were.
100%. I mean, the backup that the Leviathans had for Zapman at the tail end of that game allows him to be able to fight back against the Bolts. It allows Zapman to live so long. So we'll reprise it one more time. If he's on the Shark, or if he's on the Croc, invest in the stock.
Oh, yeah.
Yarkor and the Leviathans take game 3. They take the set, and they cut off the undefeated streak. That's it from us on the cast. We'll throw it to the desk to close the day.
Leviathans able to get back to their winning ways. Unfortunately, the Olympus Bolts fall from their winning ways. This is a Leviathans 2-1 set win after a Bolts win right in the middle there in game number 2. Leviathans just look consistent as the game goes on here. Game 1, think back if you can. And that is just a slow bleed out by the Bolts. This game, we knew the Leviathans had the ability to do something very, very similar. And that's exactly what ends up happening. Myth, the breakdown we had during the pick and ban segment was a lot of that. The later this game goes on, the better the Leviathans feel.
Man, look, I gotta blow somebody up. I got a DM on Twitter, and they were like, yo, you called for the Freya ban? You're dumb. I don't know why you're an analyst. Freya needs to be banned, man. Like level 6.
Did you actually get called dumb?
I did. He called me dumb. I don't know his name. And not many people do because he had like 2 followers. But he DM'd me anyway. Here's the thing. He was winning boxing matches, Zapman that is, at like level 6. When Freya's allowed to get online that quickly, that just means that the portion of the game where you're just holding W and mouse 1 for an entire team fight comes that much faster. But you got to highlight, as Trelly said, some of that frontline presence from the Leviathans. The peel potential, Yarkor comes up massive for this team. Rongyu has a great performance as well, and even when things aren't going ideally for the Leviathans, a Fire Giant steal here or there, you could tell that the calls were concise and clutch plays galore. I think it was like a frame 1 banish on a Brutalize into a 1v1 from Zapman. That legitimately made me stand up in the green room. It was such a cool play to see. So clearly the Leviathans, who've started a little bit rough so far this phase, have still got it, man. World champions for a reason.
Yeah, but again, I to your point, I think the mentality of the squad was always that even with a loss, a set that maybe got away with them against the Dragons, still felt like a squad that was performing better than what the win-loss record over in the standings showed. And this is another iteration of it. Because, the Bolts had a great fight back in Game 2, but the KDA is looking very similar from Games 1 and 3. Just felt like a style of game where the Leviathans were able to just start bleeding out the Bolts, get a couple of kills, but then just really start rolling as the game goes on. And a couple of sets now today, Miff, where like sudden burst damage kind of ends these games, like one team fight, and then suddenly we're running it down. A couple of those here for the Atlantis Leviathans who were able to get back to their winning ways. Zapman, the man playing Freya in game number 3, with me now for the post-game interview. Zap, zoom out for me, if you will, a little bit. I know that you talked a bit about how the Dragon set kind of felt like it got away from you. Felt like the team really was more of a 2-1 team, 1-2. Didn't really, I guess, standings not living too much in your head. Do you feel like this was some of the best Smite you guys have played this phase so far against the Bolts?
Yeah, we definitely wanted to do well in phase 2 opposed to phase 1. So when we lost to the Dragons, we played so sloppy. Especially me, I had a couple ranked moments, like when I was Freya and I went try to 1v5 them at their blue buff and things like that. So our emphasis this week was to play clean Smite, and that's what we did.
You did. Game 1 and Game 3, actually miraculous from you guys. And Freya, I want to touch on Freya a bit, because it feels like the story forever has been just survive early and you'll get to late eventually. And I guess much the same now, but it feels like Freya's a bit better earlier on in the game now. Do you get that read?
Yeah, she is. They buffed her 2 where it does 35 damage now, which before that patch it took level 3 of her 2, so that was minimum level 6 to actually have that clear, and now you have it at level 1. So you have a lot of pressure, you get to lane first, so Freya's now an early game, mid game, and late game god.
Well, look, you handed defeat over to the Olympus Bolts for the first time this phase, getting back to your winning ways. Congrats, and we'll see you on the next match.
Thank you.
Atlantis Leviathans able to hand the Olympus Bolts their first loss of the phase, feeling good about their way they're playing Smite, and they should, Miff, because I do think that this was some of the cleanest Smite we've seen from the Leviathans, and continuing that style of play is going to be a great look for the Levi's and the rest of their fans. Unfortunately, with that set being over, that's the final set of the day that we've got for you here today. Had two sets. I know, unlucky.
Darn!
Had a couple sets, of course, yesterday, a couple sets here today. Figured one of these would be a 3-game set. I thought maybe both, but the Kings looked a lot better than the Titans in our first set of the day. The Leviathans in games 1 and 3 looked very, very clean up against the Bolts. And now those two teams, Miff, go up against one another tomorrow. And how about that set? Camelot Kings versus Leviathans to start off on Sunday.
Yeah, just a really exciting one. We put a really important matchup at the top of the day. Sorry to all the gamers at home. We're going to have to wake up maybe 2 or 3 hours sooner than you would have otherwise. But I don't know. On a Sunday, good reason to wake up, I suppose. Something to get you out of bed. Camelot Kings versus Levi's. I'd watch it.
Yeah, I mean, the Leviathans at 2-2. It's honestly the same continued, I guess, trend, I guess, from the first phase of the year here in Season 9, where all of these teams so closely knit. It feels weird, the Leviathans and the Oni Warriors, the way they're playing, the Jade Dragons, all these teams tied for 4th, I guess, but there's like 3 teams that are all tied in that area. Like the top 6 teams in this league, all super closely knit with one another. Feels like we're getting back to a very, very similar spot, Miff, and lots of exciting Smite to look forward to. Are your eyes on that first matchup tomorrow?
Yeah, 100%, man. I feel like that's just got really high implications on the standings for the rest of the year, right? Like that's going to be a great heat check for these two. Not that it's going to be the last time they match up. Double round robin for this phase means that there will be a chance for revenge for whichever team loses, because one has to. But either way, wake up, 11 a.m.
We'll be here before then, but everyone else, wake up, 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Camelot Kings versus Atlantis Leviathans kick off our Sunday and SPL action, 11 a.m. Eastern Time tomorrow. On behalf of myself, Mifflin, all the other casters, everyone back in production, thanks for watching. We'll We'll see you tomorrow.